Chapter 26 The night was calm and quiet as Haru lay on the bed of his small inn, staring at the dim moonlight streaming through the window. Earlier, as he passed by the slaughter docks in East Town, waves of deathly aura had assaulted his heart like a sneak attack. He had almost panicked, thinking he might faint on the spot or involuntarily transform again, aging a few more years in the process. Based on his past experiences, whenever he absorbed deathly energy, something always changed, whether it was the unnaturally tall grass where he first woke up, the tree leaves that turned into branches during his water divination, or Toru's injuries mysteriously healing after being caught by poachers. If he had transformed in public tonight, it would have created a sensation. The news of such strange phenomena would likely attract certain interested parties, like the Kaken team still investigating this island. Haru had quickly said goodbye to Menki and Ginta before heading back to his temporary lodgings near the amusement park. Now, as night fell, he hadn't felt the usual pre-transformation dizziness or fainting spells. Is there no pattern to this? He wondered aloud. Self-adaptive transformations? Sitting up on the bed, he grabbed the sleepy rock sparrow perched on the headboard, stroking its tiny head. It squawked in sleepy protest as Haru resolved, "I'm staying far away from slaughterhouses and markets from now on. Too dangerous. Hospitals, too. Better safe than sorry." As the bird flapped its wings in annoyance, Haru shifted his focus back to planning. His thoughts were soon drawn to one of his many perspectives this time, the view through the eyes of his crows. Shizuku's silhouette looked particularly striking under the moonlight. Haru shook his head, rubbing his face. Focus, Haru. No distractions. Having faced Shizuku head-on earlier through Toru's body, he couldn't deny it, she was stronger than him. It wasn't a pleasant realization. Early to bed, early to rise. Tomorrow's training would be even more intense. The next morning. In the Crescent Tiger Sanctuary, the 5 amateur hunters who had accompanied Shizuku the previous day regrouped at their agreed-upon meeting spot. After a day and night of searching, they exchanged what little intel they had gathered. Anything tied to the Kaken royal family must be ancient and dangerous, one said, his voice tinged with disappointment. Probably some tomb they're trying to keep secret. The group nodded, collectively frustrated. After all their efforts, they hadn't found even a trace of a mysterious tomb, or anything else remotely noteworthy. And where's that woman? Shizuku? Someone asked, looking around. She's probably lost, another joked, smirking. She's cute but not reliable. Or she got caught by Blanchette security, someone else added, chuckling. The informal leader of the group, a man named Daigo, raised a hand to quiet them. He was a seasoned amateur hunter and a proficient emission-type Nen user. It had been his idea to split up, partly to cover more ground and partly to test each member's capabilities. He had high hopes for Shizuku and thought a solo lesson in the field would encourage her to take things more seriously. She's probably lost, he admitted, shaking his head. She's strong, but her head doesn't seem to be in the game. A hunter needs both strength and brains to succeed. That bald idiot from Ochima didn't vet his hires properly. Let's wait until noon, Daigo suggested. The others, trusting his judgment, nodded and dispersed to conceal themselves. They waited. And waited. Finally, as the sun reached its zenith, Shizuku appeared, looking as calm and collected as ever. You're late. One hunter snapped. What do you mean late? Shizuku asked, tilting her head. Didn't you guys go back to the hotel to rest? Rest? The group collectively bristled. We agreed to meet here. Daigo reminded her, his voice tight with suppressed irritation. Shizuku frowned. I don't remember that. The hunters exchanged incredulous looks. Unbelievable, one muttered. She really doesn't remember, another whispered. It wasn't just that she forgot the time or location of their meeting, she had forgotten the meeting entirely. What kind of person is this? From a nearby branch, the Haru crows cawed in amusement. Shizuku's memory, or lack thereof, was consistent with how she was portrayed in the manga. She had an extraordinary talent for forgetting anything she deemed unimportant. Yesterday's events? Forgotten. Meeting her companions? Forgotten. Yet when it came to the Phantom Troop's rules and values, she was meticulous, even adorning herself with symbolic items like a cross-shaped necklace, a mark of her devotion to Krillot. Midday at the sanctuary. While Haru's main body trained at his lodgings, his network of birds kept watch. Some kept tabs on Shizuku, others observed the Kakin agents at the northern coast, and a few had abandoned their original assignments out of sheer boredom. By noon, Haru returned to his training spot, where Toru waited patiently. Menki and Ginta arrived not long after, with Menki lugging a large stash of ingredients. Saved my appetite for this. Haru grinned. Don't get used to it, Menki muttered, quickly whipping up a feast. The group, including Toru and Haru's rock sparrow, dug in heartily. After lunch, the real work began. Haru spent hours cycling between exhausting himself with Ko and Ken and allowing his aura reserves to recover, pushing his limits with each repetition. Even Ginta, a seasoned Nen user, couldn't hide his surprise at Haru's sheer determination and rapid improvement. At this rate, he's growing stronger 10 times faster than normal, Ginta thought, frowning. By the end of the day, Haru's aura capacity had increased by 200 units, an extraordinary feat that would normally take a month of intense training. He's like a beast, Menki muttered, slumping in exhaustion. And you're the chef, Haru replied, grinning as he wiped his sweat. Menki rolled her eyes, wobbling to her feet. Tomorrow. You're cooking. Nightfall at the amusement park. The amusement park was quieter than usual, though still lively with scattered visitors. Haru, seated at a food stall, enjoyed a hearty meal as he idly played with his sparrow, watching the passers-by. His cash reserves were dwindling fast. Only outgoing, no income, that's not sustainable. Haru sighed. Guess it's time to earn some extra cash. Surveying the crowd, an idea struck him. I've got strength. Let's put it to use. Haru smirked. Time to set up a performance stall. Chapter 27 - Authentic Blue Moon Beads. Don't miss this chance. Each crescent tiger produces only one in its lifetime, one bead, one tiger, one life. Under the night sky, the bustling fountain square in the amusement park saw an increasing number of visitors drawn to this enthusiastic sales pitch. The so-called blue moon beads were also sold at souvenir stalls in another part of the park. While not everyone believed the story, the beads were a popular local keepsake. They did appear particularly stunning under the moonlight, emitting a soft blue glow. However, the crowd's attention wasn't solely on the bead but on the young boy hawking it. He looked no older than 5. The boy grinned. For just 1,800 jenny, arm wrestle me. Win, and the bead is yours. The crowd murmured in amusement. A woman in the group smiled and asked, so cute. Where are your parents? This little guy is so serious. Makes me want to pinch his cheeks. Is the bead even real? They sell for 40,000 jenny at the souvenir stands. Even if it's fake, it's still free entertainment. 40,000? The guy who sold me mine claimed it was 100,000. Ha! Many were entertained by the spectacle. After all, what kind of arm wrestling challenge could a 5-year-old possibly pose? Haru swatted away a hand trying to pinch his cheek and scowled. Excuse me, ma'am. I'm working here. Want to arm wrestle? Step up and pay the 1,800 jenny fee. The woman chuckled. Here's 5,000 jenny, sweetheart. If I win, the bead is mine, okay? She pulled out 3 crisp bills and waved them teasingly. Thank you, ma'am, Haru replied, accepting the money. He hopped onto a borrowed stool, positioned himself, and extended his hand. "Let's go, sis." The woman giggled as she took his tiny hand. "Oh, honey, you don't stand a chance, huh?" She stopped mid-sentence. Whether she applied pressure or not, the boy's arm didn't budge, locked in place like an iron bar. Even as she strained, sweat forming on her brow, it was clear she couldn't move his hand. Exhausted, she finally let go, still puzzled. Is this real? Cheers and laughter erupted from the onlookers. Some even suspected the woman was in on the act. "Fake. She's probably his mom," someone joked. "I'll go next." A muscular man in a tank top shoved his way through the crowd. He cracked his knuckles, glaring at Haru. "I can't stand bratty kids. Cost me a fortune to bring my family here. Let's see how you do against me, kiddo." "Sure." Haru waved his hand. 1,800 jenny. 2,000 for a blue moon bead? Why not? The man slapped a bill onto the table, only to have his arm slammed down in seconds. He staggered back, staring at his hand in disbelief. Haru, clearly enjoying himself, made no effort to hold back his strength. Everyone, young, old, male, or female, fell to his arm in under 3 seconds. With over 1,400 units of nen at his disposal, even though he wasn't a reinforcement user, his physical power was overwhelmingly superior. To him, this was child's play. Literally. Before the amusement park security could intervene, Haru casually packed up and disappeared into the crowd. As the crowd dispersed, some still marveling at the boy's feats, a wiry young man with a shifty demeanor sighed heavily. A passerby recognized him and shouted, "Hey, aren't you the guy who sold me a blue moon bead for 100,000 jenny?" "Yeah, and now I'm the one getting scammed." The merchant grumbled. "The kid borrowed that bead from me and vanished." "So it's real, huh? What a riot." Satisfied with the spectacle, the tourists wandered off, leaving the vendor fuming. Haru soon returned, casually tossing the bead in his hand. 1,000 jenny, and I'll buy it from you." 1,000? The merchant's eyes bulged. "Kid, you're worse than me." 900. Deal. After a night of performing, Haru pocketed 26,700 jenny. Subtracting the 900 jenny he spent to keep the bead, he netted a tidy profit of 25,800 jenny, roughly 1,200 yen. Placing the blue moon bead on his bedside table, its soft blue glow catching the moonlight, Haru collapsed into bed and fell asleep instantly. The next day, his routine resumed. Morning was dedicated to nen training, focusing on refining his hatsu techniques. Afternoon was reserved for building up his aura reserves and honing basic skills. Minky stopped showing up as frequently. Likely preoccupied with perfecting her conjuration ability, she seemed determined to prove herself. Even Ginta left Haru alone to focus on his own work. Meanwhile, Haru pushed himself relentlessly. His aura capacity continued to grow incrementally as he cycled between depletion and recovery. He'd even given himself a self-sustaining command through the star mark on his neck, effectively training on autopilot. His focus wasn't solely on his physical body, though. Through the crows shadowing Shizuku, he maintained a passive presence, hoping to guide her to him eventually. Simultaneously, another group of birds monitored the movements of Kaken agents along the northern coast. By evening, there was a development. Baby Mina, the stern leader of the Kaken team, had uncovered the burial site of Haru's foster mother and the hired hunter. Through his crows perched on nearby branches, Haru watched as the Kaken team unearthed the graves. "There are 2 bodies here. This one is the disgraced queen, and that one is the professional hunter she hired. No sign of the child's remains. Possibly taken by the grave digger, or scavenged by wild animals earlier." Baby Mina stood tall and impassive near the open grave, listening to his subordinates' reports while gazing at the decayed remains of the queen. Photograph the evidence and send it to Prince Benjamin, he ordered. What about the bodies? Someone asked. Unless you have a fetish for desecrating corpses, rebury them, Baby Mina replied coolly. Mark the location. Yes, sir. As his men began refilling the graves, Baby Mina's gaze shifted to 2 crows circling above before flying off. 2 at a time, rotating shifts. 6 in total. He muttered under his breath. Hardly a coincidence. Controlled birds, perhaps? An operator-type user. He didn't alert his team but made a mental note, if the manipulator is watching us, they may also have the prints. Back at his training ground near East Town, Haru clenched his fist, forming a dense orb of aura at his fingertips. That guy might have noticed the pattern of my birds, he thought grimly. Can't play games with someone that sharp. He released the orb, and with a loud crack, the energy shot forward, splintering tree after tree before dissipating. Though powerful, the attack left Haru with enough energy to spare. His Nen capacity had grown significantly. It's time to focus on training, he muttered, recalling the birds shadowing Baby Mina. A few days later, as Haru continued his relentless training, Menki finally returned, brimming with excitement. You're still at it? She teased, watching him from a distance. Have something to say? Haru shot back, unimpressed. Well, duh. Menki grinned. She extended a finger, a faint aura swirling at its tip. My Nen ability is complete. No way I'm losing to you now. Her confidence was palpable as she gestured dramatically. Haru rolled his eyes. 1994 is over. Time to move on. Menki froze. Huh? It's 1995 now. New Year's Day, Haru said, waving her off. Let's celebrate. Feed me. Menki brightened, following him eagerly. Oh, just wait till you see my new ability. I'll show you once we eat. Chapter 28. The moment Haru took his first bite, he immediately sensed something unusual. The table before him was laden with an impressive spread of dishes, all meticulously prepared by Menki. Vibrant and aromatic, the dishes ranged from meats to vegetables, and even flowers, culinary creations unique to the hunter world that Haru couldn't even begin to recognize. Menki's skills as a chef, renowned to the point where Ginta admitted no one could surpass her in culinary mastery, were on full display. Even something as humble as cabbage melted in the mouth under her magic, and the simplest fish became a delicacy worth savoring. But that wasn't the point. The moment Haru took a bite of the fish, he felt a sudden surge of warmth within him. The heat spread through his body, as if unblocking hidden channels and reinvigorating every pore. Most notably, his depleted Nen reserves, diminished after a day of rigorous training, were now recovering at an astonishing rate. It was as if the very essence of the meal had infused his aura, boosting both his energy and stamina in an almost miraculous way. Haru didn't say a word. He simply grabbed his chopsticks and began devouring the dishes at lightning speed. Though he remained silent, Menki could tell from the look on his face and the sheer enthusiasm in his eating that her efforts had been a resounding success. She beamed with pride, straightening her posture and summoning a container into her hand through a swirl of aura. Rainbow seasoning. This is the Nen ability I've developed. Menki twirled the container in her hand with flair. Haru, though absorbed in the food, was listening. For a chef, his voracious appetite was the highest compliment, and Menki was basking in her triumph. With dramatic emphasis, she explained, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, 7 colors, 7 functions. The Nen-infused seasoning in this meal. Let me demonstrate. She gave the container a shake, and green flecks shimmered out, glowing faintly with vibrant energy. It seemed to radiate life itself. Green for recovery. Haru blinked. Did she develop this ability because my recovery speed irritated her so much? He glanced at Ginta, who was calmly eating. For all the brilliance of Menki's rainbow seasoning ability, Haru suspected it came with some limitations. Menki, as if reading his mind, proudly declared, "I'm a chef, so I can't lie to myself. If the dish isn't perfect, this ability won't work. Only meals I consider worthy can activate the rainbow seasoning." Though this self-imposed rule might seem restrictive, Menki treated it as a badge of honor, a testament to her skills as a chef. Clutching her seasoning container, her eyes gleamed with the excitement of discovery. "Nen is just so fascinating." Haru, now curious, asked, "So if green is for recovery, what do the other colors do?" "Red is for combat," Menki teased with a mischievous grin. She dematerialized the container with a flourish. "As for the others? That's a secret." Haru chuckled. "Good. If you told me everything, I'd feel obligated to explain my abilities in return. And that'd be orange is." "Wait, why are you pulling out your knife?" Their usual bickering filled the air, though Ginta paid no mind, calmly finishing his plate. Wasting such exquisite food would be a crime, after all. And so, the new year began with a full belly and plenty of laughs. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye, bringing the calendar to January 10, 1995. Haru did a quick mental calculation. It had been nearly 20 days since he arrived in this hunter's world, and over half a month since he began his nen training. Every single day, he gave it his all. Even when his all was an autopilot grind courtesy of his star-marked self-training system. Yet as time passed, Haru relied less on the star mark to train. The rigorous discipline of daily practice had hardened his resolve, enabling him to push through grueling routines entirely on his own. The results of his efforts were unmistakable. In just over 2 weeks, he had built a solid foundation in the 4 basic principles of Nen, Ten, Zetsu, Ren, and Hatsu. His mastery of advanced applications like Gyo, Ken, Shu, and Ko was enough to earn Ginta's quiet approval. His progress in the enhancement category was particularly impressive. He could now unleash aura bullets of considerable power with ease. His ultimate move, Flicker Finger Shot, no longer required extensive charging and could deliver devastating results with minimal preparation. As for manipulation, Haru, deep in meditation, maintained a ken for over an hour without breaking a sweat. Even as he trained, his mind was busy exploring a new application of his abilities. This new ability was a development of his manipulation-based Song of Earth. Unlike the star mark, this was a moon mark. Haru glanced at his palm, where a dark gray crescent-shaped mark shimmered faintly. The idea for this ability came from the mental link he had previously established with his star-marked creatures. By isolating and refining the communication aspect of his powers, he had created the crescent moon mark. In his vision, this was the second piece of a larger sun, moon, and star system of marks. If he ever developed a sun mark, it would need a more elegant name to match. For now, the crescent moon mark, or simply lunar mark, was designed purely for telepathic communication. As for the range of this mental link, that was a question for future experiments. The most tangible result of his training, however, was the exponential growth of his aura reserves. When he first started, his total aura capacity barely reached 100 units. Back then, creating just 1 star mark left him completely drained. Now, after holding a ken for over an hour, Haru wasn't even close to running out of stamina. He had tested himself with a timer earlier. If he pushed to his limits, he could now maintain a ken for a staggering 100 minutes. His total aura capacity? 6,000 units. This meant he could now deploy nearly 100 star marks in quick succession without exhausting himself. In raw aura reserves, Haru had already doubled the combined average capacity of Gon and Killua by the end of the Greed Island arc. "You're still at it. You're insane." Menki's voice snapped him out of his meditation. She approached, holding a plate of stir-fried pork. With a flick of her hand, she conjured a sprinkle of green rainbow seasoning over the dish. Have you heard about the new commotion in town? Apparently, Blanchette Corporation finally received official clearance from Kaken Kingdom. They're allowing HxH officials to investigate the protected zone. Seems like they're recruiting help, whether civilian or professional. Are you interested? Menki handed him the plate, grinning. I'm thinking of joining. Or are you planning to scam more tourists with your street act? Haru took the plate, savoring a bite of pork as his aura reserves rapidly replenished. He smirked. Why not? I think it's time to step out of training and recruit a teammate of my own. Chapter 29. Taking a route far from slaughterhouses and markets, Haru and Menki walked back together. Even in this short time, the green-seasoned stir-fried pork Haru had eaten had already restored his energy almost entirely. Menki's rainbow seasoning, paired with her exceptional culinary skills, was truly an unmatched combination. As they passed through East Town, Menki patted Haru on the shoulder. Yeah, I see them too, Haru said, glancing briefly at a group of people questioning the locals. Kaken's men. About 10 days earlier, Haru had stopped keeping tabs on Barbimina and his team, so he wasn't sure what progress they had made. However, over the past 4 days, Kaken personnel had been popping up around the eastern coast towns, quietly asking questions, likely about the missing infant wrapped in swaddling clothes. Judging by their current behavior, they seemed to have made little headway. That, at least, was good news for Haru. Meanwhile, HxH's search had also hit a standstill. Over the past few days, aside from Kaken's people, HxH had its hired amateur hunters combing through the towns. Their focus seemed to be uncovering any traces of the original Kaken inhabitants from over 2 decades ago when this mysterious ghost island had first appeared here. Even vague rumors from the locals might offer clues. For Haru, it was a minor relief. He had spent the last couple of weeks discreetly monitoring Shizuku via the 2 crows he had stationed nearby. While he avoided tailing her back to West Town or her hotel, he occasionally provided subtle assistance during her missions in exchange for food. Through this, Haru had gleaned that HxH's goal was likely to find an ancient royal Kaken tomb rumored to be on this island. But what would they even do if they found it? Turn it into a tourist attraction? Build a museum with ancient relics? As Haru pondered, he and Menki soon met up with Ginta, and the 3 of them made their way to meet the HxH official stationed in East Town, the balding Sloan. On the way, Haru asked, Ginta, aren't you going to participate? Ginta replied, I've already completed my assignment, dealing with the poachers. If HxH wants to hire me for something else, they'll need to submit a request through the Hunter Association, get it approved by the review board, and then notify me. Too much of a hassle. Menki pointed to herself and Haru. What about us? Aren't we professional hunters too? Don't we have to go through the same process? My rates are high, Ginta explained. But you two should be fine accepting the civilian hunter rate. If you're okay with it, you won't need to go through the association. Oh, I see. Menki nodded in understanding. It might not be as much, but this is more about gaining experience than the money, right? Haru smirked. Official government contracts pay well because of allocated budgets. Spending less doesn't benefit them, it's all about how much they can claim and distribute. Ginta gave Haru an appraising look. The compensation isn't just about the money. Menki tilted her head. What else is there? Haru patted her shoulder with mock seriousness. Connections, of course. Getting to showcase your skills to official representatives is invaluable. You never know when some king or president might take a liking to you and appoint you as their royal chef or advisor for life. Think about it, getting a steady paycheck without lifting a finger. Menki lit up. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Ginta added, these temporary recruitments are likely meant to attract professional hunters. I suspect HxH is specifically targeting people like Menki, given her skills. Don't forget me, old man. Haru pulled out his hunter license with a sly grin. I'm a hunter too, you know. 1. Here we are. Ginta led them into a modest building. When Sloane learned that Ginta would not be participating, he didn't seem surprised. Due to budget restrictions, Sloane could only offer civilian hunter rates for Ginta's help. It was no shock that the experienced Zodiac turned him down. Now, then. Menki, Haru, is it? Sloane asked with a polite smile. The contract is for 5 days. If nothing is found, the base compensation is 2 million jenny. If there are discoveries, it doubles. For conclusive results, the reward is 10 million jenny each. Here are the contracts. If there are no issues, please sign. No issues on my end, Menki said nonchalantly, signing her name with practiced flair. As a former child prodigy who won a world cooking championship at 12, her signature was bold and elegant. The 5 amateur hunters who had been hired alongside Shizuku watched with growing frustration. Even Daigo, the most seasoned of them, could only grit his teeth at the sight of Menki effortlessly securing the same base pay they had worked weeks for. We've been at this for over half a month. Why do they get the same deal as us? Because of that little hunter license, apparently. Patience. Daigo glanced at Shizuku. Over the past 2 weeks, he and the others had begrudgingly accepted that this seemingly scatterbrained girl was likely the second strongest person in their group, after Kanzai, of course. Shizuku, however, remained unfazed by the perceived unfairness. True to form, her expression betrayed no annoyance or concern. Is she really this oblivious? Oblivious or not, there wasn't much the others could do. If they complained, they risked becoming punching bags for her ridiculous strength. Can you help me with something? Haru's voice broke through the tension as he approached Shizuku, holding out his contract. What is it? Kanzai, nearby, came over to investigate. Haru pointed to the dense legal text. I can't really make sense of all this. Could you help me read it? That's easy. Kanzai scoffed. Why bother? Just sign it. Haru gave Kanzai a pointed look. You're Kanzai of the Zodiacs, right? He glanced at Ginta. What's going on? Did the association start handing out Zodiac positions like candy? You guys seem awfully busy. Ginta sighed, realizing he'd been roped into Haru's banter once again. Even Zodiacs need to eat, Kanzai snapped. What, you think we're just sitting on fancy chairs all day? You looking for a fight, kid? His frustration exploded into a surge of aura, sending shivers through the room. To the untrained, it felt like an oppressive pressure. For those who knew Nen, it was a chilling reminder of Kanzai's strength. Shizuku, oblivious as always, continued examining Haru's contract. This seems familiar? Did I sign something like this before? You should have, Haru replied, eyeing her curiously. Didn't you? Her vague response only left him more puzzled. Does she really not remember? Are you done yet? Kanzai growled, his aura flaring once more. But Haru remained unfazed, his focus entirely on Shizuku. What is going on in her head? Haru wondered, resisting the urge to knock and find out for himself. Chapter 30 Kanzai looked like an angry tiger with steam coming out of his ears. Though Daigo and the other amateur hunters knew his anger wasn't directed at them, they still shivered under the pressure. All right, Kanzai, Ginta interrupted, breaking the tense atmosphere. I don't think Haru meant anything by it. He turned to Haru. Do you even know what a specialist hunter is? Of course, Haru replied, pausing briefly before admitting, well, explain it anyway. Kanzai rolled his eyes but seemed to cool off as quickly as he had flared up. Forget it for now, Ginta said, cutting the topic short. There was no need to delve into the association's internal conflicts here. Fine. Haru grabbed a pen and signed his name with elegant Chinese characters. What kind of writing is that? Shizuku asked, leaning closer. It's a niche language. You wouldn't have seen it before, Haru said nonchalantly. Oh, Shizuku nodded, accepting his explanation without question. So what was the point of asking her to read the contract? Daigo and the others silently fumed. Haru had signed just as quickly as everyone else. What a waste of time. Well then, everyone, said the bald-headed Sloane, clapping his hands together. Prepare yourselves. In 20 minutes, we'll set out for the reserve. We've got 5 days left to make something of this investigation, and now that we have Blanchette Company's cooperation, we can search openly. Let's aim for some real progress. What exactly are we even looking for? Menki asked, puzzled. She glanced behind her to find Haru and Ginta already walking away. Daigo approached and explained in a hushed voice, it's not about inefficiency, it's Kaken's constant stalling. They've wasted more than half of the original 20-day deadline. Oh, Menki nodded and walked off after Haru. Wait up, you two. Daigo stood there, speechless. Shizuku, meanwhile, had pulled out an old book from who knows where and sat quietly reading in a corner. You're leaving? Menki turned to Ginta. Of course. My mission here is complete, he replied. You finished with the poachers ages ago, she countered, hands on her hips. Haru chimed in, he means his real mission was probably mentoring you and Nen. Right, Ginta? And don't think I've forgotten, you still owe me an explanation about those specialist hunters. Planning to skip out on it? Ginta stopped at the doorway, thought for a moment, and then turned back. Mentoring rookies like Menki isn't a paying gig. Huh? Menki looked confused. What does that have to do with anything? While guiding a promising rookie can be rewarding if they become successful, it's not guaranteed. Potential is an unpredictable factor, Ginta explained. Specialist hunters tend to avoid these kinds of unpaid, time-consuming tasks. They also steer clear of any high-risk jobs, even if the reward is substantial. They'll only take on low-risk, high-reward tasks that don't take much time. Any hunter with self-respect should despise those kinds of cowards, a voice chimed in from behind them. Haru and Menki turned to see Kanzai grinding his teeth in frustration. Those specialists are a disgrace to the title of hunter. Watching them cherry-pick missions just makes my blood boil. What makes a proper hunter, then? Menki asked, genuinely curious. Whatever the specialists are not, Kanzai retorted, his tone biting. Ginta spoke up, his voice calm and steady. A true hunter is someone with unending patience, boundless curiosity, and the courage to face any challenge head-on. If Chairman Netero were here, I believe that's what he would say. He glanced at Haru and Menki. Do either of you have a hunt you're willing to dedicate your life to? Of course I do. Menki puffed out her chest and pointed to herself proudly. I'm a gourmet hunter. I'll do anything for the sake of great food. Haru smiled faintly. I guess I have one, but it's a long-term goal. Not something I feel like sharing. Kanzai nodded grudgingly. You're not as annoying as I thought, kid. You're the tiger here, Haru quipped. Kanzai blinked, not following the joke, while Menki burst into laughter. Haru could be infuriatingly sharp. Ginta offered a rare smile before waving them off and heading out on his own journey. At Blanchette Company's research facility, Sloane shook hands with the company representative. So, we're officially authorized to investigate now, correct? The representative withdrew his hand, his expression neutral. Haven't you been investigating for the past 2 weeks already? Sloane sidestepped the comment with a polite smile. This time, we'll also include the core area in our search. That's the main habitat for the crescent tigers, the representative replied, his tone firm. I don't know what you're looking for, but I must insist that you not disrupt the ecosystem here. Crescent tigers are critically endangered. This reserve is one of their last sanctuaries. Blame Kaken for the delays, Sloane said dismissively. "Mind your words, Mr. Sloane," a stern voice interrupted. The group turned to see Barbimina approaching with several Cocken personnel in tow. His movements were precise, and his demeanor exuded military discipline. Cocken has already gone to great lengths to approve this cooperation, thanks to First Prince Benjamin's full support. First Prince? Shizuku tilted her head in curiosity. Menki explained, "In Cocken, all of the king's children are called princes, regardless of gender. They're treated equally." Dago added, "Prince Benjamin is the eldest and most likely heir to the throne." He cut himself off when Barbimina's sharp gaze turned his way. Haru's ears perked up at the mention of the first prince. "Ah, so it's that Benjamin," he thought. "The one who strangled a lion barehanded in the manga. And also the older brother of the sadistic fourth prince." "Great," Haru mused grimly. "Looks like I figured out who my future enemy is. This is going to be a pain." Barbimina suddenly pointed at Haru. "Is he one of your hired hunters?" "Yes," Sloane replied, still smiling. Barbimina studied Haru for a moment but said nothing further. Menki crossed her arms, glaring defensively as if daring him to criticize Haru. As the group moved into the reserve, Haru raised his hand. "So we're free to investigate however we want?" "Exactly," Sloane confirmed. "We trust our hunters to work independently. All we care about are results." "In that case, let's stick together," Haru suggested, nodding toward Menki and Shizuku. Shizuku looked around, realizing he meant her. "What did you just say?" one of Dago's companions snapped. He'd been stewing in resentment since Haru signed the same contract as them. "You think you can just..." The man froze mid-sentence as Haru raised a finger. A dense ball of aura spun rapidly at its tip. "Seems like you've had issues with me from the start," Haru said calmly. The glowing sphere of Nen grew larger and brighter, radiating palpable danger. The man's face paled as sweat poured down his forehead. He instinctively understood, this wasn't a bluff. If Haru fired, it would be fatal. Haru flicked his finger. Boom! The Nen bullet tore through the air, grazing the man's cheek and cutting a line of blood before blasting through several trees behind him. The man collapsed to his knees, trembling, while Haru stood over him, utterly calm. Haru blew on his fingertip nonchalantly. "Any more complaints?" "He's an emitter." Kanzai and Barbimina both thought, their expressions tightening. That kind of power is no joke. Even Menki seemed surprised. Haru wasn't usually this confrontational. As for Sloane, a mere bystander in all this, he had no idea what had just happened. All he could do was stare in stunned silence at the aftermath of Haru's magic trick. Chapter 31 Watching Haru, Shizuku, and Menki's retreating figures, Dago and his companions were left with a mix of emotions. We were hired alongside Shizuku from the beginning, so how come it's these two newcomers who get to team up with her? Should they shamelessly try to join the group? It wasn't impossible. But what excuse could they use? Strength in numbers? That wouldn't work, splitting up would be more efficient. To protect the two girls and the kid? Yeah, right. That kid nearly killed one of them with a single finger earlier. Who was protecting who, exactly? "Are you all forming a team or splitting up?" asked one of Blanchette Company's staff members. Since the company had officially allowed the investigation, they had assigned personnel to accompany the hunters. At the very least, they needed to protect the Crescent Tigers and ensure the hunters didn't cause too much damage. Dago and the others exchanged glances. "Do you have any recommendations?" "Our recommendation is that there's nothing here worth investigating. You'd be better off calling it a day." "Then we'll split up," Dago decided quickly. "The 5 of us will act separately, and we'll need 5 separate escorts." The group divided, with 2 heading to the outer perimeter, 2 to the buffer zone, and Dago himself making for the core area, where they had spent the least time over the past few days. In the core area of the Crescent Tiger Reserve, where the forest was more pristine and untamed, Haru, Shizuku, and Menki moved slowly through the dense underbrush, accompanied by 2 security personnel from Blanchette. Technically, none of the 3 had the professional skills or experience typically associated with hunters, but as Nen users, their enhanced senses, sight, hearing, and touch, were far beyond normal human limits. When they focused their aura on their eyes using Ren, their vision became razor-sharp, allowing them to spot even the faintest traces of energy. Menki, employing Ren to sharpen her vision, casually glanced at Shizuku, who seemed to be observing her surroundings in a rather lackadaisical manner. "Have you never practiced maintaining Ren at all times?" Menki asked. "Oh," Shizuku blinked in realization and immediately focused her aura on her eyes. She scanned the area and then fixated on Haru's ears. "Does it work on ears too?" she asked curiously. That stumped Menki. This wasn't something Ginta had taught her. Haru chuckled. "Try it and see." Both women attempted it. After several tries, they successfully gathered aura at their ears, significantly enhancing their hearing. The forest came alive with amplified sounds, the rustling leaves, the scurrying of small animals, and the distant calls of birds. "It's not as useful as focusing on your eyes," Menki remarked. "With your eyes, Ren can reveal hidden energy." Shizuku covered her ears briefly, then asked, "But could there be energy that can only be heard using Ren?" Menki frowned, confused, then her expression shifted to one of surprise. "See? She's sharper than you," Haru teased. "You need to think outside the box, Menki. What if you encounter an opponent using sound-based Nen techniques?" "What sound techniques? This is Nen, not ninja tricks," Menki retorted. Shizuku, ever the curious one, asked, "Why does he call you little sister?" Menki snorted. "Good question." Haru grinned. "It's a term of endearment. I'm sort of her mentor. Be glad I didn't call her my niece." "You're asking for it." Menki growled, clawing at him like a wild animal. She then shifted the topic. "Shizuku, as an amateur hunter, you haven't taken the hunter exam, right?" "Right." Shizuku nodded absent-mindedly, her focus still on her surroundings. "And you?" Menki hesitated and glanced over her shoulder. The 2 security escorts from Blanchette were keeping a respectable distance, likely unable to hear their conversation. Haru interjected, "She means, how did you awaken Nen? And since you can use Nen, why haven't you mastered the basics like Ren? Didn't you have a teacher?" He was genuinely curious. While not all members of the Phantom Troop hailed from Meteor City, some, like Killua's family, joined later. Shizuku and several founding members shared that origin. Meteor City was said to be a massive garbage dump dating back 1,500 years, taking in the world's trash, weapons, corpses, and even abandoned infants. Today, it reportedly housed 8 million residents, though that number had never been verified. But if the number couldn't be verified, where had the 8 million figure come from in the first place? Haru often found this part of the manga's lore particularly thought-provoking. Shizuku looked at them but offered no answer. "You're getting cocky just because Ginta's gone," Haru scolded Menki. "Don't you know better than to ask someone about their abilities? What if she doesn't want to share?" "Oh, sorry." Menki apologized, then glared at Haru. "Do you get a teacher if you pass the hunter exam?" Shizuku asked. "Yep, but not everyone can actually learn," Menki explained. The trio wandered the core area for hours, spotting several crescent tigers along the way. However, their mystical aura was less apparent during the day. Eventually, Shizuku exclaimed, "Oh, so those are crescent tigers?" "You're only realizing that now." Menki sighed. By nightfall, they had found nothing significant. With only 4 days left before their contract expired, failure to produce results would leave them with the base reward of 2 million jennies, roughly equivalent to 10,000 US dollars. While not a bad payday for 5 days of minimal effort, the thought of potentially doubling or even multiplying that amount several times over was tempting. At the edge of the core area, the trio encountered Daigo, who looked just as defeated as they felt. "Well, see you tomorrow, Shizuku," Menki waved as she and Haru turned to leave. Though the Ochima officials didn't interfere with the hunter's work, Daigo hesitated for a moment before calling out, "Want to continue searching tonight? Splitting 2 million feels." When he turned back, Shizuku was already gone, following Menki and Haru toward the same exit. Above him, 2 crows cawed before flying off into the distance. Daigo stood there, baffled, before reluctantly heading back into the forest. The Blanchette security team sighed. "Fine, if you want to skip dinner, we'll skip it too." Under the glow of the neon lights in the Spirit Amusement Park, Haru was back at the Fountain Square, once again setting up his arm wrestling stall with the now famous blue glowing lunar gem as the prize. The security guards were already familiar with his antics and turned a blind eye. As usual, curious tourists gathered around, debating their bets. "I'll bet this musclehead lasts 3 seconds. 3? He's gotta last at least 5. "I'll put my money on 1 second, a merchant chimed in, laughing. Bang! In the blink of an eye, Haru slammed the muscleman's arm down, leaving him stunned. "You're up next," Haru said as a familiar girl approached the table. Dressed in her signature black sweater and jeans, Shizuku calmly stepped forward. "Caw, caw." Overhead, 2 crows circled once before flying away, their job done. Shizuku, of course, paid them no mind. Her violet eyes were locked onto the lunar gem on the table. "Don't even try it," the defeated muscleman warned. "That kid's got freakish strength." "Move along, mister," Haru interrupted. "If the lady wants to try, let her. Make room." The muscleman grumbled but stepped aside. Shizuku took his place and sat across from Haru. "Don't just stare at it," Haru teased, waving his hand over the lunar gem. Shizuku had yet to look at anything else. "Win, and it's yours." He set his arm on the table and flexed his fingers. "You can even use Nen if you want." A stream of aura encircled Haru's arm, visible only to those who could see it. Finally, Shizuku looked up at Haru. "Can we change the bet?" "To what?" Haru asked, intrigued. Shizuku wrapped her hand around his, her aura flaring faintly. "Your hunter license," she said. "Deal," Haru replied without hesitation. "But a hunter license isn't worth a mere 1,800 Jenny entry fee. So, what are you putting up if you lose?" Chapter 32 Shizuku paused, her eyes fixed on Haru. "What do you want?" Haru grinned. "If I win, you'll join me. From now on, you're in my crew. Deal?" Shizuku considered this for only a moment. Feeling the immense strength emanating from his hand, she nodded. "Okay. All right, then. Ready?" Haru said, smiling. 1, 2, 3, go. The match began instantly, with both their arms and hands wrapped in a dense layer of aura. Nen, the life force or spiritual energy that fueled their abilities, was inseparably tied to both body and mind. For a Nen user, there was no need for excessive physical training. Strengthening Nen inherently enhanced the body, making it a more efficient path to physical prowess. Since arriving in this world, Haru had relied solely on Nen to strengthen himself. Through rigorous training, he had pushed his total aura to 6,000, a feat that had naturally enhanced his physical attributes. While he couldn't compare to Killua's poison-resistant and electricity-enduring body, Haru's strength couldn't be judged by his small stature. Shizuku, too, relied on her Nen, gathering her aura into her arm. She generated an incredible amount of force despite her slender build. But even so, she couldn't overpower the boy across from her. Instead, she felt mounting pressure as the match continued. Is his strength greater than mine? In this fierce contest, the vibrations between their arms and auras grew more intense. Slowly, Shizuku's arm began to tilt under the pressure, her hand inching closer to the table. Finally, bang! Her hand hit the table. I lost, Shizuku murmured, rubbing her sore arm. The crowd surrounding them erupted in astonishment. It was the first time anyone had lasted close to a minute against Haru's sheer strength. This is insane. I think the table almost broke. Wait, it did crack, someone exclaimed. What kind of superhuman is this girl? A merchant thought, begrudgingly handing over money for a lost bet. Shizuku flexed her hand experimentally. She noticed Haru's aura flowing back into him. Using Gyo, she could see that he had wrapped part of his aura around the table. Did you really have to protect the table? She asked. Haru smiled. Can't have the table breaking mid-match, can we? You're amazing, Shizuku admitted. Then, with a hint of curiosity, she asked, I feel like I should have been stronger than you. Why did I lose? Fundamentals. Haru raised his hand. Shizuku watched as his aura, which had been evenly distributed across his body, surged into his arm and hand like a flowing river. Haru explained, your aura reserves are probably larger than mine. But my control over Nen is better. That's why I won. Both were equally far from the enhancement-focused reinforcement Nen type, leaving them at no inherent advantage or disadvantage. Haru estimated that Shizuku's aura capacity was slightly over 7,000, greater than his, but she lacked the finesse to match his control. Ah, I see. Shizuku nodded in understanding, accepting her loss with grace. I lost fair and square. Haru grinned. So, I'm your boss now? Yes. And you'll listen to your boss? Yes. Great. Let's go. Haru stood, addressing the gawking crowd. Show's over, folks. Move along. Here, it's a gift from your boss. As they strolled through the neon-lit amusement park, Haru handed Shizuku the blue lunar gem. She accepted it without hesitation, examining it closely. Her usually expressionless violet eyes sparkled with newfound fascination. I'm putting together a little group, Haru began. We'll call it Akatsuki. The Hunter Association has the 12 zodiacs, so we'll go with the 10 heavenly stems. Since I'm the leader, I'm Jia. You're the first member, so you'll be Yi. Shizuku tore her gaze from the gem, tilting her head slightly. You're already part of the Hunter Association. Why start another group? What's the problem? Haru shrugged. Being a hunter is just one identity. A lot of professional hunters have side gigs, lawyers, judges, top-tier doctors. This is just a small group for fun. Nothing serious. Oh. Shizuku nodded. Haru smirked, asking knowingly, so, why did you want my hunter license so badly? Shizuku blinked. I saw the Ferris wheel earlier. Someone told me you need a hunter license to ride it. Haru had expected this answer, given that his crows had led her here. Is it that one? He pointed to the dark, inactive Ferris wheel in the distance. I haven't ridden it either. Let's go. Pocketing the lunar gem, Shizuku followed him with a spring in her step. At the Ferris wheel's entrance, two Blanchette staff members scrutinized Haru's hunter license, their skepticism growing. Is this really a hunter license? One muttered, astonished by the boy's age. The hunter license was notoriously impossible to forge, so once its authenticity was confirmed, the staff stepped aside. Please, right this way. One staff member led them to the Ferris wheel, while another moved to activate it. With a low hum, the massive structure began to turn. In the darkness, the Ferris wheel resembled a colossal windmill. Of the roughly 30 passenger cars, only one was illuminated. That's the only operational cabin due to certain restrictions, one staff member explained. It's rare for anyone with a hunter license to come here. Fair enough, Haru replied. When the illuminated cabin descended and came to a halt, the door opened, and Haru and Shizuku stepped inside. The cabin began its ascent with a faint hum. Inside, Haru and Shizuku simultaneously made curious noises. Huh? As the cabin gently rose into the night sky, Shizuku looked at her hands, perplexed. Something felt different. Haru, meanwhile, scanned the interior of the cabin. Taking a few steps back, he looked down at the floor and let out an enlightened sigh. Haru could feel his aura rapidly recovering, as if being nourished by an unseen force. His gaze fixed on the intricate black symbols covering the cabin floor, a complex arrangement of runic patterns. It's not just a Ferris wheel, it's a mechanism powered by Nen. Okay hunters. Short pause. Sue the YouTube overlords don't get mad. Did you know, the Nen symbol is hidden in the Hunter x Hunter logo. The two X's in the title represent the kanji for Nen, when mirrored and stylized. Okay. Let's keep going. Chapter 33 - What is this? Shizuku crouched beside Haru, examining the dense black symbols etched into the floor with curiosity. They're Nen inscriptions, Haru replied casually. Shizuku turned her head toward him, silently waiting for an explanation. Haru pressed his hand to the symbols on the ground, focusing his aura. Almost immediately, he felt his aura recovery rate accelerate sharply. It was like receiving a soothing, invisible massage, leaving him refreshed and invigorated. To put it simply, some Nen users can infuse their aura into these Nen inscriptions, turning them into auxiliary tools for Nen techniques, Haru explained. He paused, considering what he remembered from the manga. Nen inscriptions were a rare and peculiar aspect of Nen. Examples included the string cloud manipulated to bind Gon's finger, the box Jing left for Gon, or the glyphs etched into the arena during the Greed Island arc, which enhanced a fighter's teleportation punches. In essence, the Nen inscriptions in the Hunter universe were somewhat akin to the sealing scrolls in the Naruto universe, except instead of storing jutsu or items, these inscriptions stored specific Nen techniques. The inscriptions in this Ferris wheel cabin seem to contain enhancement-type aura, Haru speculated. They likely amplify aura recovery. Once they detect our aura, they activate automatically. Shizuku tilted her head. Why would they activate? We didn't do anything when we came in. Didn't you? Haru smirked. To recover aura efficiently, aren't you maintaining 10 out of habit? Even though 10 isn't as effective as Zetsu for recovery, it's still far better than letting your aura disperse. A regular person wouldn't experience anything like this. Ah, that makes sense, Shizuku said, nodding. Alternatively, Haru added, the activation trigger might be having an aura pool beyond a certain threshold. Creating Nen inscriptions is said to be labor-intensive and time-consuming. Their practical use in combat is limited, so they're mainly used for things like this. Shizuku nodded again. I see. After a while, Haru stopped analyzing the inscriptions. He had learned as much as he could for now. The two sat opposite each other in the cabin, which was the only one illuminated on the Ferris wheel. As the wheel turned, they gradually ascended, the nighttime view expanding around them. Looking out at the dark, unlit cabins, Shizuku asked, do those other ones have inscriptions, too? No idea, Haru replied casually. Glancing at Shizuku's profile as she stared out the window, he suddenly asked, Shizuku, why did you agree so easily? Agree to what? She replied, tilting her head slightly. To follow me if you lost the arm wrestling match. Usually, people wouldn't just pledge their loyalty over a small competition, Haru said with a grin. Don't tell me you plan on going back on your word now. If so, you'd better wait until we're off this Ferris wheel, there's nowhere to run in here. As they reached the Ferris wheel's apex, Shizuku continued gazing at the view outside. I'm not backing out. You're my boss now. All right, then. What's my code name? Gia, she answered. And yours? Yi. Not bad. Your memory isn't as bad as they say, Haru chuckled. Remember our first rule in the Akatsuki organization, always listen to the boss. Got it, Shizuku replied. Good. Let's move on to the organization's name. While we're called Akatsuki for short, our full name is Dawn of the Twilight. What does it mean? Shizuku asked. Haru smirked. Where do you find twilight and dawn? In the night? Exactly. In the night. Haru leaned back against his seat, gazing at the illuminated amusement park below. Shizuku, have you ever heard of the Dark Continent? No. Not surprising. Shizuku had a tendency to forget things that didn't interest her, and the Dark Continent, an intentionally shrouded and forbidden subject, was likely something she'd never been told about, or had already forgotten. As the Ferris wheel began descending, Haru stretched his legs, casually dangling them off the seat. The Akatsuki's first objective, the Dark Continent. We're going there no matter what. Okay. Shizuku nodded, then asked, what kind of place is it? That's the thing, nobody knows. That's why it's so fascinating. We have to find out for ourselves. Ah, that makes sense, Shizuku replied, her curiosity piqued. Haru briefly outlined what he knew about the Dark Continent, the strange and miraculous artifacts like the eternal rices and perpetual energy stones, ancient cities lost to time, and mysterious life forms unknown to humanity. Shizuku's violet eyes glimmered with intrigue, though Haru suspected her enthusiasm might wane quickly. You still haven't answered my earlier question, Haru said. Most people wouldn't risk following someone over a single arm wrestling match. Why did you agree? Shizuku tilted her head slightly. Are you worried I'll betray you? A little, Haru admitted. If loyalty comes too easily, it feels like it could vanish just as quickly. Shizuku shook her head. I won't. This time, she answered his question directly. It's not like I had anything better to do. Following you at least gives me a purpose. Haru raised an eyebrow at her casual tone. So random, yet somehow deliberate. Just then, a small shadow darted toward the cabin. With a faint thud, it struck the glass. Shizuku turned to see a gray bird perched outside, pecking insistently at the window. Is that your pet? She asked. Nah, just a stray I picked up, Haru replied dismissively. The Ferris wheel finally reached the ground, its single-lit cabin gently coming to a halt. Haru stood up and stepped out, turning back to Shizuku with a smile. Second rule of the Akatsuki, we help each other, respect each other's space, and never betray one another. Shizuku followed him out, nodding. Understood. And you're smiling again, Haru teased. Am I? Yep. You definitely smiled. Okay. If you say so. Outside the cabin, Haru scooped up the gray bird as it fluttered toward him. What's your deal, huh? He muttered, flicking the bird's beak playfully. Chirp. The bird protested. Shizuku watched the exchange, her usual blank expression softening. So, it really is your pet? Not really, Haru replied, letting the bird perch on his shoulder. As they strolled out of the Ferris wheel area, Haru suddenly stopped and turned, staring at the now dark and silent structure. Blanchette Corporation's founder is a hunter named Errantrier Blanchette, he murmured. These Nen inscriptions might be his work. Shizuku tilted her head. What are you thinking about? Haru smirked. Instead of wandering around aimlessly for this job, let's change our focus. We'll search for more Nen inscriptions. If Blanchette is involved, there could be a pattern. Chapter 34 – She accepted you as her boss. When Menki heard this, she was stunned. Even though Haru always acted mature and composed, indistinguishable from an adult, even though he claimed he was actually a 20-year-old trapped in a child's body, and even though his strength was undeniable, he still looked like a little boy. The young gourmet hunter frowned, crossing her arms. Shizuku, are you serious about this? Shizuku, slightly confused, nodded. Of course. Haru chimed in with a grin. Menki, how about you? I've still got 8 spots left, and I can barely squeeze you in. Your skills? Well, they're passable. You can be the chef for my future glorious organization. Menki wasn't angry, she respected Haru's abilities enough to let it slide. We'll see. I only just became a professional hunter myself. As the three of them talked, they continued heading into the protected area overseen by the Blanchette Corporation. As usual, the site manager assigned staff members to accompany them during the investigation, following a safe distance behind. Menki activated Gyo and asked, what exactly do these Nen inscriptions look like? Haru replied, they're basically a bunch of incomprehensible scribbles. Look closely at flat surfaces, rocks, or tree trunks, there's a chance we might find something. Menki gave an exaggerated thumbs up. Surrounded by dense forest and prowling tigers, the group had to remain vigilant against predators while searching carefully for inscriptions. Gyo wasn't without its drawbacks. Even the most skilled practitioners wouldn't constantly use it, prolonged concentration was draining. If they were attacked while fatigued, the consequences could be dire. It would be so much easier if I knew N, Haru lamented. Menki grinned mischievously. What's this? The great Haru, Mr. Prodigy, can't do something? I thought you could master anything instantly. Guess you're human after all. Haru pondered aloud, I think this might not be a talent issue. Then what else could it be? Menki muttered, glancing at Shizuku, who was using Gyo nearby. Shizuku, can you use N? Shizuku replied, I've heard of it, but I haven't learned it. Haru added, if I really wanted to learn it, I would have asked Ginto while he was still around. So the only explanation is, deep down, I don't feel a strong desire to master N. Menki looked puzzled. What does that even mean? Haru explained, sure, N is a convenient scouting skill, but 1, it's not suitable for combat. You have to withdraw the aura used for N to fight effectively. 2, when you detect someone with N, they'll realize they've been spotted, like peeking at a teacher through a pile of books. When you see them, they see you. Maybe I find that kind of scouting dull, so I've been indifferent about learning it, Haru concluded. Menki chuckled. Well, now you really want to learn it. Yeah, you only miss a skill when you need it, Haru admitted. Menki suggested, why not ask that little tiger, the 12 Zodiac member Kanzai, to teach you? Haru countered, he has his own mission. If something happens to the target he's protecting while he's teaching us, who takes responsibility? Fair point. Menki muttered. The three searched the protected area thoroughly for another day but still found nothing. At one point, they ran into the 5 amateur hunters, who looked utterly exhausted. It seemed they hadn't had any luck either. With only 3 days left until the mission deadline and no progress to show, everyone was feeling the pressure. Their dark circles and weary expressions made that clear. As dusk settled, low tiger roars echoed through the forest. The Blanchette staff accompanying them tensed, hands moving toward their tranquilizer guns. From the woods emerged a moonlit tiger, its glowing stripes shimmering like jade. Oh, it's you, Menki said, stepping forward to pat Toru. She reassured the staff, we've run into this one several times. It's friendly, no need to worry. Toru approached Haru and nuzzled its large head against him. Haru smiled and patted the tiger's head. Suddenly, a thought struck him. He turned to the staff and asked, by the way, are there ghost stories about this place? There's no such thing. Just baseless rumors. Ghosts and spirits don't exist, it's all made up. How could anyone believe that nonsense? The staff members hastily dismissed the idea, but their nervous tone only made it sound less convincing. Haru, however, seemed unconvinced from the start. If you don't believe us, why ask? Shizuku tilted her head, her curiosity piqued by Haru's question. Haru surveyed the area and called out loudly, "They say the Kaken Kingdom has always been wary of this land, or rather, what used to be this land before it became an island 20 years ago. What are they hiding?" "Who are you talking to?" Menki asked, startled by Haru's serious tone. Shizuku mimicked him, scanning the surroundings. "Hey, kid, don't scare us like that," one of the staff members protested. "If we fail this mission, fine, but don't go." They cut themselves off abruptly. Both Menki and Shizuku immediately turned to stare at them. "So there is something here, huh?" Menki teased with a grin. Haru continued as if he hadn't heard, "I've heard the Kaken Kingdom is steeped in rituals and curses. While some dismiss it as superstition, every rumor has a grain of truth. Why else would they avoid this land, as if it were cursed? If something or someone has been wronged, come forth and speak your grievances." The surrounding forest grew eerily quiet. Toro prowled restlessly, low growls rumbling from its throat. More moonlit tigers emerged from the shadows, their glowing stripes casting a ghostly light. "If you harbor hatred toward Kaken and wish to vent your rage, show yourself and share your story," Haru called out, his voice carrying through the trees. The others watched in stunned silence. Suddenly, a pale, ghostly figure flickered in the distance, a small, childlike silhouette. "What the hell is that? Did you see that shadow? Is it a ghost?" The amateur hunters panicked, their fear contagious. "Calm down," Daigo snapped, though he himself felt a chill run down his spine. "There's no such thing as ghosts. If this is real, it's just a Nen ability." The realization dawned on them all at once. Meanwhile, the Blanchette staff were rubbing their eyes, struggling to make sense of what they were seeing. The pale figure seemed to flicker in and out of view, blending with the forest shadows. Shizuku activated Gyo, her gaze fixed on the translucent childlike form. "It's real," she said softly. Menki swallowed nervously, her wide eyes darting between the figure and Haru. The figure hovered silently for a moment before fading away. "What now?" Menki asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Listen closely," Haru instructed, his tone firm. Both Shizuku and Menki funneled their aura into their ears. Slowly, faint, haunting words began to emerge, growing clearer with each repetition. "Hoei Guo-ru. Must die. Hoei Guo-ru. Must die." And just like that, the ghostly figure vanished, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Chapter 35-. That night, the group of hired amateur hunters gathered at the residence of Okima's bald-headed representative, Sloane. Sloane asked in surprise, "Are you saying there really are ghosts?" Haru replied, "We're hunters. We wouldn't lie to our employer." "Of course not. I'm not doubting your professional integrity," Sloane nodded, rubbing his half-bald head. Bodyguard Kanzai furrowed his brows. Ghosts? It was probably some form of Nen, he thought. Although Kanzai wasn't the brightest and was practically illiterate, he still had a sense of professional decorum. When ordinary people, Nunin users, were around, he refrained from mentioning anything related to Nen. Exchanging a glance with Haru and the others, Kanzai realized they shared a similar suspicion. However, unlike Haru and his group, Daigo and the other amateur hunters strongly suspected that the so-called ghostly apparition was some kind of trickery conjured by Haru. Perhaps he was trying to create an illusion to fool them and secure his payout before the mission deadline. "Shizuku, ever direct?" asked Sloane, "does this count as a significant discovery?" Daigo and the others shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Even if Haru was bluffing to secure the reward, they'd still benefit from it. Sloane, however, hesitated. "The staff from the Blanchette Corporation who accompanied you claim they neither saw any ghosts nor heard any strange sounds. It'll be difficult to count this as a reportable discovery. I'm afraid I'll need more tangible proof from you all to justify doubling the reward, and so I have something solid to report back with." With that, the matter was settled. Dago and the others nodded silently, unwilling but accepting the situation. Shizuku left with Haru and Menki. Under the cover of night, the hunters exchanged knowing looks, each silently resolving to head back into the forest. The Blanchette Corporation staff sighed, rotated shifts, and followed them reluctantly. Haru looked around, noting that on his left and right were two beautiful women. "Ghost hunting at night, doesn't it feel more atmospheric?" he quipped, waving his hand. "Let's head out." Shizuku immediately followed, and Menki, shaking her head with a smirk, trailed after them. From the shadows of the forest emerged the man with the cauliflower hairstyle, Baby Mina. Watching Haru and his group walk away, Baby Mina considered for a moment, called his subordinates, and began following them from a distance. "They said the Kaken Kingdom. If you've been wronged. If you hate Kaken." As Haru's group strolled through the forest under the moonlight, familiar echoes of shouting came from nearby. "It's Dago and the others," Menki remarked. "They're copying you," Shizuku observed. Haru chuckled. "Well, my method did work, after all." "But it can't work twice," Menki said. "That childlike apparition vanished after you called out. Even if they shout again, it probably won't reappear. It's pitch dark out here, finding anything is going to be tough." Menki crossed her arms. "You're the one who wanted to do this at night, though." "Well," Shizuku interjected, "none of us can use N." Haru fell silent, then suddenly turned his gaze toward the Blanchette staff following them from a distance. Beyond them, Baby Mina and his men were quietly tailing the group. "But some people can," Haru said. "N?" Baby Mina's expression didn't change. "And why are you so certain I know this technique?" "You look like a skilled fighter," Haru said. "When I used that Nen bullet to threaten Dago earlier, you didn't even flinch. A normal person would have reacted like Sloane did, scared out of their wits. So, are you going to admit it or not?" Baby Mina replied calmly, "Even if I did use N and detected your so-called ghost, I couldn't guarantee that it would react to my aura." Menki interjected, "Do you Kaken people really know nothing about this island's true nature?" Baby Mina clarified, "This place has been here for almost 25 years now. In other words, whatever the Kaken Kingdom might have known about this land belonged to the past." "So, you're willing to help us, then," Shizuku concluded. Baby Mina didn't reply immediately. His gaze briefly swept over the two women before settling on Haru. Haru smirked. "I'm not asking you to find the ghost." "If not the ghost, then what?" Baby Mina asked. Haru responded, "Nen inscriptions." Baby Mina raised an eyebrow. "The Hunter Association is the world's foremost authority on Nen research." Haru caught the implication. Baby Mina wasn't familiar with Nen inscriptions. "Nen inscriptions are symbols imbued with Nen," Haru explained. "I'm not a professional Nen researcher, so my understanding is limited." Haru half-jokingly recounted his experiences. "I've seen inscriptions a few times. Once, they were on a rope that would snap when exposed to a certain level of 10. Another time, a wooden box covered in inscriptions became indestructible. And on one island, I saw inscriptions on a fighting ring that enhanced a fighter's Nen abilities." As Baby Mina listened, he seemed to process the idea, nodding thoughtfully. Menki, meanwhile, muttered to herself, wondering if Haru's stories were really true. Maybe he was 20 years old after all. Haru continued with a grin. "The most recent instance was over there." He pointed toward the northern part of East Town, where the amusement park was located. Glancing at the nearby Blanchette staff, who were busy keeping an eye out for predators, Haru added, "Shizuku and I found some inscriptions in the ferry amusement park." He didn't need to elaborate further, Baby Mina was already making the connection. The founder of the Blanchette Corporation was a professional hunter. If his amusement park had Nen inscriptions, and his company had managed this island for the past 4 years, there was a possibility they had used similar techniques elsewhere. Baby Mina asked, "What do these inscriptions look like?" Menki shrugged. "Don't ask me, I haven't seen them." Shizuku admitted, "I forgot." "They're cryptic symbols," Haru said with a smirk. "Don't tell me you've been investigating this island for over 2 weeks with no leads whatsoever." Baby Mina's expression remained neutral. Haru pressed on. "Wherever you suspect something important might be, it's likely the Blanchette Corporation has left inscriptions there." The night was dark, the moon nearly full, and the air deathly still. Haru's group wandered through the core area of the reserve, their footsteps crunching softly against the frost-like moonlight covering the ground. Ahead, scattered through sparse woods and grassy clearings, clusters of luminous jade-like lights moved silently. Moonlit tigers prowled or lay sprawled, their glowing stripes and eerie eyes reflecting the moonlight. At the sound of approaching footsteps, dozens of tiger eyes turned toward them, gleaming like fireflies in the darkness. Baby Mina stopped to observe the tigers, his gaze sharp and steady. The other staff members raised their weapons, tranquilizer guns and pistols alike. Menki nudged Haru and pointed toward another part of the clearing. There stood Toru, accompanied by another moonlit tiger, the one Haru had rescued from poachers. Haru waved a hand toward Toru, signaling it to stay back. The tiger tilted its head in confusion but obediently remained at a distance, circling with its companion. "I found it," Baby Mina suddenly announced, striding forward. The cluster of moonlit tigers scattered like stardust, retreating into the shadows. Chapter 36-. Baby Mina's N wasn't exceptionally large, but it was sufficient to cover the area of a decent-sized hotel apartment. As he walked, maintaining his end to search, it naturally encompassed Haru and the others following him. "So, this is what it feels like to be under someone else's N? Not much to it, really," Haru mused as they reached the spot, hidden among the moonlit piles of scattered stones. The Blanchette Corporation staff following them exchanged uncertain glances, speaking into their earpieces in hushed tones. Baby Mina stopped in front of a massive boulder, placing one hand against its side. With minimal effort, he shifted the multi-ton rock to reveal a previously hidden surface. "This is it," Shizuku said, her glasses slipping slightly down her nose. The bottom of the stone was partially concealed by grass. Menki brushed the vegetation aside, revealing a series of strange symbols etched onto the rock. "So, this is what you call Nen inscriptions?" Menki asked skeptically, turning back to Haru. The densely packed symbols resembled ancient totems, invoking feelings of mystery and ritual. Shizuku reached out, her hand moving toward the inscriptions, but Haru grabbed her wrist. "Not so fast. We don't know what these inscriptions do yet." He turned to Baby Mina. "Is this the only site?" "For now," Baby Mina replied, before suddenly narrowing his eyes and sharply glancing toward the forest. A chilling wind swept through the air. Baby Mina's men immediately drew their pistols, pointing them toward the source of the disturbance. "What is it?" Menki asked. Haru and the others used Gyo, focusing their aura into their eyes. Sure enough, a pale, ghostly figure of a boy flickered into view like a will-o'-the-wisp. The Blanchette staff, oblivious to what the others could see, were thoroughly confused. Haru, Menki, and Shizuku shifted their aura to their ears, tuning into the ghostly figure. The haunting words it muttered were enough to send shivers down their spines. "Hoei Guo Ru. Must die. Hoei Guo Ru. Must die." As the spectral voice echoed, the forest around them grew alive with light. The gleaming stripes of moonlit tigers emerged from the shadows, their glowing eyes fixated on the humans. "Hoei Guo Ru. Must die." The pale ghost chanted over and over, its voice hollow and haunting. Baby Mina, catching on, focused his aura to his ears as well. For the first time, his composed expression shifted slightly. Menki wiped sweat from her brow, while Shizuku stared at the ghost curiously. Its resemblance to Haru crossed her mind, though she wasn't sure why. Haru, if he had known, would have been quick to refute her thoughts with a flick to the forehead. Baby Mina gave a signal, and his soldiers sprang into action. With a few swift strikes of their rifle butts, the Blanchette Corporation staff were knocked unconscious and carefully laid on the ground. Prince Nest. Baby Mina addressed the ghost. Hoei Guo-ru. Must die. The ghost's reply was as empty as its pale eyes, devoid of any emotion. Prince? Menki whispered incredulously. What's with this guy? Why is he assuming every ghost is a prince or royalty? Do Kaken royals have a high mortality rate or something? Hoei Guo-ru. Must die. The pale ghost's voice grew more sinister, as if the very moonlight around them turned frigid, making everyone's skin crawl. What the? Dago and his group appeared, having followed the commotion. They froze upon seeing the pale apparition, as well as the glowing eyes of the moonlit tigers gathering around. You found something? Dago glanced at the unconscious Blanchette staff, exchanging uneasy glances with his companions. Take a look for yourself, Haru said nonchalantly, pointing at the inscriptions on the rock. Try pouring some aura into it. Something might happen. No guarantees it's safe, though. Dago hesitated. What do you think? What do you think? Haru echoed, turning to Menki and Shizuku. I'll follow your lead, Shizuku replied. Don't beat around the bush, just say it, Menki added, crossing her arms. Haru smirked. Fine. Professionals handle things properly. Let's do it. As Baby Mina continued addressing the ghost, Prince Nest. Haru rolled his eyes. Give it a rest, man. The ghost isn't targeting you, it's chanting about Hoei Guo-ru. Let's focus on these inscriptions instead. If something goes wrong. Before he could finish, Haru, Menki, Shizuku, and Dago's group poured their aura into the inscriptions. In an instant, their bodies were engulfed in blinding white light. With a flash, they disappeared, as if absorbed into the stone. Something goes wrong, Haru's voice trailed off as the light faded. What just happened? Baby Mina's soldiers exclaimed in alarm. Before anyone could react, the pale ghost twisted and transformed. Its body stretched and morphed into a grotesque four-winged skeletal dragon, emanating an overwhelming and malevolent aura. This aura. Can it be real? Baby Mina stepped back, activating Ken to shield himself as the enormous skeletal dragon loomed closer. Hoei Guo-ru. The dragon's hollow eye sockets burned with ghostly green flames, its skull lowering toward Baby Mina. Its voice, even more chilling than its monstrous appearance, reverberated. Must die. The dragon roared, a sound like a lamenting wail. Yet ordinary humans could not hear it. Amidst the gathering tigers, one pair of glowing eyes stood out, a pair belonging to Toru. Possession it was Haru, wide-eyed as he took in the scene. Endless cycle of life. Specialization type cooperative ability. A soul consumed by hatred, fused with its host Nen beast, forming a miracle of undying resentment. It lingers in the ancestral grounds, forever bound to the moonlit tigers as vessels for its reincarnation. Without true consciousness, it only awakens to its fiercest malice upon encountering a Hoei Guo-ru royal. Haru, are you okay? In the dimly lit corridor, Menki waved a hand in front of Haru's face. Did you hit your head? I'm fine, Haru muttered, gripping Shizuku's outstretched hand and springing to his feet. Dusting himself off, he surveyed his surroundings. Where the heck are we? A beam of flashlight swept over them, making Haru squint. Don't shoot. It's us. Came Dago's voice from the other side of the light. Stop waving that thing around, Haru snapped. If I'd accidentally blasted you, it would have been your fault. Daigo looked sheepish but didn't apologize. Haru let it slide, dissipating the Nen bullet he had almost launched. He turned his attention to the stone walls, narrowing his eyes as he concentrated his aura into Gyo. Find something? Menki asked, leaning closer. Shizuku followed suit, her eyes widening. There's writing on the walls? Haru nodded. These are messages left with Nen. Only Nen users can see them. It's almost pointless, though. Anyone entering here would have had to trigger the inscriptions. What's the point of showing off with Nen writing? What is this place? Daigo asked. Looks like an ancient tomb. Menki read the faintly glowing inscription aloud. Give me some respect. Don't disturb this place. Jing Freaks, Chapter 37 - Ha, give me some respect. You think just saying that makes it so? Seeing the message left by Gon's unreliable father, Haru almost burst into laughter. Respect? Sure, take it. Leaving a message like this with such advanced methods, this Jing Freaks guy must be a pretty powerful Nen user, right? Menki asked. Haru, Shizuku, have you heard of him? Shizuku shook her head. No. Daigo and the others were equally clueless. Information on Jing Freaks was classified to such an extent that even within hunter-specific databases, it was often reduced to a pile of question marks. Without a hunter license, amateurs like them had no chance of accessing it. How about you, Haru? Shizuku asked, looking up slightly. Her glasses slid down her nose, and Haru had to resist the urge to push them back into place for her. My grandma even knows who he is, Haru replied dryly. This man was once hailed by a very important figure as one of the world's top 5 Nen users. Top 5 in the world? Menki gasped. The world's top 5. Daigo and his group were stunned. To be ranked among the world's greatest fighters was beyond their comprehension. In addition to that, Jing was one of the 12 zodiacs of the Hunter Association, holding the boar position. Known as the Drifter of the 12 Zodiacs, Jing was infamous for constantly wandering the world, difficult to track, and generally unreliable. The hallmark of a true eccentric. But Haru didn't bother revealing all this. Information wasn't free, after all. Haru said, I'm not keen on crossing someone like this. Whatever you all decide to do is your business. He turned and ventured further down the corridor, with Menki and Shizuku following him without hesitation. Daigo and his team stood frozen for a moment before one asked, Wait, if you don't want to cross him, why are you still going in? Hey, wake up. They hurried to catch up. I'd love to leave, Haru muttered. But if you know how to get out, feel free to share. We might as well explore, right? It's not like we're messing with anything. That doesn't count as disrespect, Daigo rationalized. Menki, Shizuku, got your phones? Let's record some vlogs while we're here, at least then we can say we've done something. Haru's voice echoed through the ancient halls. Outside, the night had grown darker, and the moonlight dimmed as a cool breeze swept through the forest. Baby Mina stood tense, beads of sweat forming on his forehead as he faced the monstrous skeletal dragon. Its oppressive aura and twisted malice kept him on edge. The bone dragon loomed close, examining Baby Mina as if sniffing out a scent. Come on, attack already. Haru thought impatiently, watching the scene through Toru's eyes. Ever since the pale ghost transformed into this grotesque creature after sending him and the others into the tomb, the dragon had exuded an aura of imminent danger. But it hadn't actually attacked. Baby Mina hesitated. He suspected the creature might be a Nen beast or an ability with reactive triggers. If he made the wrong move, the consequences could be catastrophic. Just as Baby Mina steeled himself to test the waters, he heard muffled sounds of bodies hitting the ground behind him. He turned sharply, his eyes narrowing. Someone had incapacitated his men. He leapt back and caught sight of a middle-aged man with neatly combed blonde hair, sunglasses, and a well-tailored suit that seemed out of place in the forest. "Relax. I'm not your enemy," the man said casually. He adjusted the unconscious soldiers on the ground, then looked at baby Mina with a calm smile. "Don't worry. The ghost already said it, Howe Guo-ru must die. You're not Howe Guo-ru, so it won't attack you." "Who are you?" baby Mina asked, his guard still up. "I'm Elantral Blanchette, a one-star ruin hunter," the man replied, extending a hand. "Founder of Blanchette Corporation?" Baby Mina quickly understood the significance. Technically, he was still on this man's turf. He reached out and shook Elantral's hand. "Baby Mina." Elantral released his grip and smiled. "I know. You're part of Prince Benjamin's private army." "Who's your teacher?" baby Mina asked. "That, I can't disclose," Elantral said. "And the dragon?" "Also can't disclose." Baby Mina frowned. "When did you discover this place? Did you seal the entrance to the royal tomb?" Elantral raised an eyebrow. Would the Howe Guo-ru royal family really want this thing returning to them? That'd be a nightmare. "That's not for me to decide," baby Mina replied evenly. No comment. The conversation felt like a series of riddles to Haru, who silently observed through Toru. Inside the tomb, the group moved cautiously through the corridors. Menki recorded their surroundings with her phone, while Haru was lost in thought. The ghost's repeated chant of Howe Guo-ru must die lingered in his mind. Baby Mina wasn't Howe Guo-ru, which was why the ghost hadn't attacked him. But as a subordinate of Prince Benjamin, he might have carried the royal family's scent. "What is this, a tracking dog?" Haru thought, amused. "Ah." At the front of the group, Dago's flashlight revealed something in the darkness. Chapter 38-. The corridor walls began to feature spaced-out scaffolding and barriers, resembling a museum's preservation setup. Along the barriers were repeated logos, Blanchette Corporation. Clearly, this company had long since claimed the site as part of its operations, though it had not been made public. "There's writing on the walls," Shizuku pointed out. The group looked at the wall through the barriers, shining their flashlights on the scratched, weathered surface. Menki squinted. "Doesn't look like writing, more like random slashes left by someone swinging a blade around." "If they went to the trouble of setting up barriers, it can't be that simple," Haru said, focusing his Nen-enhanced eyes on the wall. "Just as I thought." "What is it?" Menki asked. "There's lingering Nen in these markings. I've only ever seen similar phenomena on highly valuable antiques." Dago and the others gawked. They couldn't believe that what seemed like simple wall scratches could actually hold traces of Nen. Certain master artisans, even without formal Nen training, sometimes unknowingly infused their works with their life energy. To ordinary connoisseurs, such pieces were priceless, carrying an indescribable aura of uniqueness. Menki continued taking photos of the wall. "Stick to pictures, not videos," Haru suggested. "Why?" Menki asked, puzzled. "In videos, Nen can be seen by those who know how to use Gyo," Haru explained. This was similar to what happened in Hunter x Hunter during the Heaven's Arena arc when Gon and Killua used Gyo to analyze Hisoka's battle recordings. "And photos won't show the Nen?" Shizuku asked curiously. "Probably not," Haru shrugged. "But we need something to take back as proof. Videos might complicate things, so let's just use pictures. Otherwise, that bald guy will try to avoid paying us." Menki snickered. "Bald guy? You're so petty." The group continued down the corridor, snapping photos. Beyond the scratches, abstract patterns began to appear on the walls. They looked like drawings but were too abstract to decipher. The only consistency was that all these markings, be they scratches, carvings, or designs, retained faint traces of Nen. Eventually, the group reached the main chamber, a larger, more spacious room. As their flashlights illuminated the area, they spotted the walls covered in wild, chaotic writing. The inscriptions were dense and erratic, as if carved in a frenzy. Haru squinted at the chaotic scrawl. His reading ability in this world's language was decent, but this script was incomprehensible. After a long examination, he could only discern fragments like world, why, and ha ha ha, leaving him concerned about the writer's mental state at the time. Like the other markings, the walls here were infused with lingering Nen, an unmistakable testament to their significance. It's incredible, who could have left these marks? Could they really be hundreds of years old? Is this truly the work of the ancient king of Kaken? Dago and his group murmured among themselves as they snapped more photos. Suddenly, they screamed in surprise. What now? Haru snapped, turning around. In the center of the chamber stood a transparent glass enclosure. Inside lay a pile of scattered objects and, most strikingly, a white fox. Dago and his group had accidentally shone their flashlights on it, startling them. It's just a bunch of toys, Haru said dismissively. Menki and Shizuku approached curiously. The white fox is a doll, Shizuku noted. Before they could examine it further, the chamber lights suddenly flickered on, illuminating the space as bright as day. You could have turned on the lights earlier, came a calm voice from across the chamber. Turning, they saw Elantrel Blanchette and Baby Mina entering through the opposite side. Elantrel had just flicked the switch inside the glass enclosure's doorframe. Menki and Dago were startled by the sudden arrival, but Elantrel introduced himself again with his usual polite demeanor. Gesturing to the walls, he explained, these inscriptions were made by the ancient king of Kaken over 400 years ago. Baby Mina's expression remained stoic as Elantrel continued, initially, we thought this was the tomb of Prince Nastaway Guoru, but we were wrong. It turns out this was more of a retreat for the first king of Kaken himself. Whenever he faced challenges or frustrations, he'd isolate himself here and vent his thoughts on the walls. As centuries passed, the king became a figure of legend, and this site remained as you see it. Haru snorted. So, he built a tomb for himself as a venting chamber. What was he so frustrated about? Dago chimed in, the first king of Kaken was a legendary ruler. Historical record says he nearly unified the Asian continent. Baby Mina studied the walls intently, his Nen-enhanced vision scanning the inscriptions. Shizuku, meanwhile, seemed engrossed in the chaotic carvings, though Haru doubted she'd remember much of it later. The past is best left in the past, Elantrel said, loosening his tie. As you can see, the king's inscriptions occasionally touch on Nen-related topics. This is why the site cannot be opened to the public. He turned to Baby Mina. Rest assured, the spirit of Prince Nastaway Guoru, what remains of it, will no longer trouble the Hoei Guoru family. Of course, this is on the condition that your people don't disturb it. At that moment, a faint, pale figure of the boy's ghost flickered inside the glass enclosure. The white fox doll stirred, walking toward the edge of the glass and pawing at a rubber ball. Baby Mina tensed. What did you do to it? Only what was necessary, Elantrel replied calmly. The spirit left behind is a fragment, a malformed fusion of a Nen beast and residual hatred. We provided it with this vessel, ensuring it won't cause further harm to the Hoei Guoru. The white fox picked up the rubber ball, dropped it, and watched it bounce across the glass floor. Baby Mina stood silently, contemplating Elantrel's words, while the others exchanged uneasy glances. How do we leave? Dago asked, breaking the tension. Elantrel pointed them toward an exit marked by a familiar Nen inscription. As the group prepared to leave, the white fox tugged at Haru's pant leg, catching his attention. Huh? Haru turned to see the fox staring at him with eerily human-like intelligence. Its form shimmered faintly, revealing the boy's ghostly visage before solidifying again. Elantral chuckled. It seems Little White has taken a liking to you. That's rare. Of course. I'm lovable, Haru replied, smirking. Right, Menki, Shizuku? Before leaving, Haru turned back to Elantral. You keep saying we. The other person who discovered this place with you, was it Jing Freaks? Elantral smiled. That's correct. Jing is my teacher. Chapter 39 Jing is your teacher? Haru quickly did the math. It was January 1995, 4 years before Jing's son Gon would take the hunter exam at age 12. That meant Jing himself was in his late 20s, maybe not even 30 yet. But this guy? Looking at Elantral, he seemed closer to 40. Why, is there a problem? Elantral asked, noticing Haru's curious look. No problem, Haru replied, just that you seem older than Jing Freaks. Elantral raised an eyebrow in surprise, studying Haru. You know Jing? Haru shrugged. I know him, he doesn't know me. Elantral chuckled and nodded, while Menki felt like Haru's words sounded oddly familiar. Let's keep moving, Elantral said, turning away. By the way, since we're all part of the association, you can just call me Alan. Shizuku was about to press the Nen inscription marking the exit but stopped when she saw Elantral heading toward another direction. The white fox doll leapt ahead, leading the way into a side chamber. It stood upright on its hind legs, raised a paw, and slapped a section of the stone wall. The wall shuddered before sliding open, revealing a 2-meter-tall corridor. Elantral gestured. This passage can only be opened by Little White. Where does it lead? Shizuku asked curiously. Where else? Haru smirked. The amusement park, probably straight to the office. Menki shot him a look. Your company's people insisted they didn't know anything about a tomb or ruins here. They truly don't, Elantral replied simply. Haru nodded, understanding. The team managing the reserve, the amusement park division, and those overseeing this tomb belong to the same company but operate as completely separate departments, right? Elantral smiled faintly. Exactly. Now, let's go. Haru, Menki, and Shizuku followed Elantral into the corridor. Behind them, the stone wall rumbled shut. The faint white figure of Little White followed closely behind. The fox doll swayed its tail as if it were a living creature, drawing Shizuku's fascinated gaze. Haru absent-mindedly petted the fox doll, deep in thought. The name Nast-Hway Guo-Ru resembled the current King Nasabai Hway Guo-Ru's name too much to be a coincidence. If his guesses were correct, Little White was once Nast-Hway Guo-Ru, a prince who lost in a brutal succession battle over 2 decades ago. His fusion with a parasitic Nen beast created during the succession ritual had turned into something monstrous. His hatred led to strange phenomena like this island's displacement from Kakin to its current location. One possibility? Nast's rage-fueled Nen had moved the island. Another? The Hway Guo-Ru royal family, terrified by the residual malice, performed some kind of ritual or technique to exile the threat. Space-altering Nen abilities were rare but not unheard of. Na's hide-and-seek, 4-dimensional mansion, was one example, and teleportation-like abilities like indoor fish or teleportation were also relatively common uses among emission-type Nen users. But to relocate an entire island? That was on another level. Still, knowing the Hway Guo-Ru family's penchant for the bizarre, Haru couldn't entirely rule it out. Yet what truly nagged at Haru wasn't the island or its ghostly prince but his own origins. The body he'd inherited through his reincarnation, could it carry Hway Guo-Ru blood? If so, could that explain the assassination attempts tied to his supposed adoptive mother? But if Little White bore him no ill will, maybe he was overthinking it. Little White suddenly looked up at him, its pale ghostly form flickering above the doll. Its empty eyes stared directly at Haru. What are you looking at? Haru chuckled, ruffling the doll's fur. Still, another possibility loomed. His adoptive mother might indeed have been a royal concubine or queen, but Haru's current body could lack Hwee Guoru blood altogether. Wasn't that plausible too? If so, his adoptive mother must have lived a wild life. Her actions might explain the relentless assassins. Haru shook his head. None of this mattered. He was a reincarnator with no ties to this world's political mess. Once he was done here, he'd leave this continent for the more story-dense areas of the world map. What people don't realize, Elantral began, interrupting Haru's thoughts, is that I should have been Jing's teacher. Menki stumbled, nearly tripping in surprise. Even Shizuku blinked in confusion. What? Haru asked, snapping back to reality. Elantral chuckled, then turned to Menki and Haru. When you earned your hunter licenses, the association likely assigned a senior hunter to teach you Nen. Correct? The corridor ended at an elevator. Elantral pressed a button, and the doors opened. Yeah, Menki replied, stepping into the elevator. I got mine last year, and soon after, a pro hunter came to teach me. And you, Haru? Haru smirked. I didn't need a teacher. I'm naturally gifted. Menki rolled her eyes, while Haru grinned smugly. The elevator ascended rapidly as Elantral continued. In 1979, about 16 years ago, Jing Freaks passed the 267th Hunter exam. At 12 years old, he was the only candidate that year to earn a license. And I was the one assigned to teach him Nen afterward. 12? Menki exclaimed. Haru's thoughts wandered to the young Jing, wondering how he dealt with the infamous Tunpa and his poisoned drinks. Shizuku asked, did you end up becoming his student because he learned too quickly? Not exactly, Elantral laughed. No, Haru interjected. You're saying Jing already knew Nen when you met him. And he was stronger than you. Elantral sighed. Exactly. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened. Far stronger, Elantral admitted, stepping out into a spacious office. The room was split between a work area with a desk and shelves, and a cozy living space with a sofa and kitchenette. The walls were mostly glass, providing a clear view of the amusement park below. Morning had broken, and the park was empty except for a few cleaning staff and guards. Little White immediately darted toward the sofa, where a small pile of toys lay scattered. It looked entirely at home. That doesn't make sense, Menki said, turning from the glass view. If Jing already knew Nen, why did the association assign someone to teach him? Shizuku chimed in, probably because Jing didn't use Nen during the exam. Damn it, Haru muttered, smirking. He fooled everyone. Shizuku tilted her head, confused by his words. Even Chairman Netero said it himself, Jing is truly remarkable to have deceived even him, Elantral said. Haru grinned. If at 12 years old he could impress someone like you, that's no surprise. I wasn't much of a master back then, Elantral said humbly. Menki frowned, looking around. What about the others who left before us? Where did the inscription send them? Oh, right. Elantral walked over to his desk and pressed a button. Screens descended from the walls, flickering on to display security footage. The cameras showed various angles of the amusement park's Ferris wheel, specifically the cabins marked with Nen inscriptions. On screen, Baby Mina, Daigo, and the others were visible. Haru and Shizuku exchanged a look, then turned to glance out the glass windows, spotting the Ferris wheel in the distance. Chapter 40 On the surveillance monitors. Baby Mina stood motionless, hands behind his back as if standing at attention. Meanwhile, Daigo and his team were far less composed. Some sat in frustration, others angrily kicked and punched at the inscriptions within the Ferris wheel cabin. Elantral pressed the intercom button. Stop kicking it. If you break it, you'll have to pay. It's you. Hey. What's going on here? Let us out. What did you do to us? Why are we forcibly put into Zetsu and unable to use our Nen? Dago and his team shouted at the intercom, their frustration palpable. It wasn't unreasonable. Being forced into Zetsu, especially passively, made them even more vulnerable than ordinary people. At least regular people had a faint aura as a natural shield. Stripped of Nen, they were defenseless, with no sense of security at all. Baby Mina glanced at the corner surveillance camera, his expression unchanging. Ignoring their complaints, Elantral held the intercom button. I'm sure you're aware that in recent years, rumors about the treasure of the true martial king have resurfaced, prompting many to come to this island on a wild goose chase. As you've seen, there's no treasure here. I don't want any more disruptions. You're all Nen users, so you should understand why certain artifacts in the tomb cannot be made public. He paused before continuing, so, when I count to 3, all storage-capable devices on you will be automatically wiped. Releasing the button, Elantral watched as the monitors displayed the hunter's stunned reactions. Dago and the others looked at the cameras in disbelief before their blood boiled, angrily gesturing and silently cursing. Turning to Haru and the others, Elantral said, "You should delete any material on your phones as well." "No problem," Menki nodded. Elantral added, "Alternatively, we can provide curated materials, focusing on the relics unrelated to Nen. That should suffice for your assignment." "Sounds good," Haru agreed. "But I have a question." "What is it?" "I don't own a phone." Elantral laughed, "That's an easy fix. Our company has a tech division. Since fate brought us together, and because Little White seems to like you, I'll gift you each one of our latest models." Even Menki, who wasn't short on money, looked pleased. Haru merely shrugged. Shizuku's curiosity took over, and she asked, "What exactly is the treasure of the first king of Kaken?" "The first king." Elantral leaned back in his large office chair, hands clasped. "Hugo Hoei Guoru, the legendary king from 400 years ago, is remembered as the man who nearly unified the Asian continent. But..." He paused for effect. "Based on our findings, Hugo didn't just intend to unify one continent. He aimed to unite all 6 continents of the known world." Haru, already deeply intrigued by the Dark Continent, remained unfazed. Shizuku, as usual, looked blank, while Menki's jaw nearly hit the floor. Though, Elantral added, it would be more accurate to say he planned to unify the 6 continents. Menki, exasperated, said, "Alan, you're scaring us." "So, it was just his ambition?" Elantral shook his head. "Not just ambition. From fragments we've uncovered, Hugo made thorough preparations and could have acted at any time. Jing himself said that if Hugo had truly set his plans in motion, success was inevitable. In other words, if he had, we'd all be Kaken citizens today." "That's incomprehensible," Menki muttered, struggling to process the scale of such a statement. "It feels so far removed from reality." Shizuku tilted her head. "Why didn't he follow through, then?" "No one knows," Elantral said. "What we do know is that, on the brink of action, he abruptly abandoned his plans." Haru quipped, "And that's why he locked himself in a tomb to scrawl cryptic nonsense on the walls?" "Possibly," Elantral replied. "So much for a glorious ending." Haru thought, recalling the odd murals and frantic scrawlings Hugo had left behind. His thoughts were interrupted by the monitors displaying Dago and the others, their frustration evident even through the screen. Was that necessary? Was that really necessary? Finally released from the Ferris wheel cabins, Dago and the others, their eyes bloodshot, grumbled under their breath. Haru, Shizuku, and Menki arrived just in time to witness their state. "Did Alan send you the curated material?" Menki asked, shaking her phone. "We got ours. Relax, it's more than enough to finish the job." "That's not the point," Dago snapped. "Our phones had personal data on them, and now it's all gone." "Yeah, it's unacceptable." Seeing their half-hearted rage and hesitant complaints, Haru couldn't help but laugh. Against a hunter like Elantral, also a billionaire, what could they really do? They were helpless, their insults deflating into quiet grumbles. In stark contrast, Baby Mina remained calm and composed. He turned to Haru and the others. "Where did you go?" It was clear they had found another exit from the tomb. Haru casually replied, "Oh, Alan was kind enough to invite us for a chat about the Hunter Association's history. But what's past is past, no point revisiting it." Minky raised an eyebrow. Though Haru wasn't lying, something about his tone made her doubt him. "Let's go claim our reward," Haru said cheerfully. "Shizuku, come on." "Reward?" Daigo muttered. "Why do you make it sound so cheap?" "Don't call it a reward, it's our payment for services rendered." Even as they grumbled, Daigo and his team begrudgingly followed. Baby Mina lingered for a moment, then glanced back. High above, Elantral stood by his office window, holding a glass of wine. He raised it slightly in acknowledgement. Baby Mina's expression remained unreadable as he turned and left. Elantral swirled the wine in his glass, lost in thought. Why did Jing believe Hugo's unification of the 6 continents would have been inevitable? Because Hugo's grand plan was to universalize Nen across Kakin, creating an unparalleled nation with an invincible army of Nen users. Given Kakin's might as a nation, coupled with the military technology of 300 to 400 years ago, universalizing Nen could have made unifying the world feasible. But at the critical moment, Hugo abandoned his plans, destroyed most of the evidence, and descended into near madness in his final years. This was the mystery Elantral and Jing had pondered during their expeditions to ancient ruins. "Why is it so hard to understand?" Jing had said, his tone dismissive. Back then, Jing had been in his early 20s, a cocky grin plastered on his face. Because he couldn't universalize Nen, Jing had said simply. "That's it?" Elantral had asked, skeptical. "That's it," Jing had replied with a laugh. Elantral had frowned. "But why? Why couldn't Nen be universalized?" Jing had shot him a lazy look. "If you can't figure it out, don't bother trying." "Master." Elantral had fixed him with a steady gaze. Jing had shrugged, turning toward the horizon. "The answer's simple. Boring, even. That's why I don't feel like explaining." He turned back, wind tugging at his scarf. "Alan, those with the right perspective will easily reach that dull conclusion." Seriously, a king capable of uniting 6 continents, and even Jing believed it? As they headed back to Sloane's residence, Haru pondered. Hugo's so-called preparations were likely centered on universalizing Nen. Was that the missing piece? Chapter 41 The first king of Kakin empty tomb, huh? Sloane rubbed his sparse hair as he reviewed the videos and photos submitted by Haru, Menki, Shizuku, and Daigo's group. After asking several follow-up questions, he turned to consult quietly with his advisors. Finally, he looked at the group and asked, "Are you certain there's no way to re-enter?" "Well..." Daigo and his team hesitated. Haru chimed in, "Only hunters can get in." "If you say so, I can report it as such." Sloane stroked his head. This world was full of strange and unexplainable phenomena, many of which only professional hunters could access or comprehend. "However, under these circumstances, I fear I can't justify awarding the maximum payout in the 3rd tier, Sloane said apologetically. That said, the findings seem genuine, so doubling the base pay to the 2nd tier of 4 million Jenny shouldn't be an issue. The final arrangement was as follows. The base payment of 2 million Jenny could be dispersed immediately. The doubled payout of 4 million Jenny would be awarded after official review by the Ochima authorities, which would take a couple of days. The maximum payout of 10 million Jenny was still on the table but would require the hunters to accompany Sloane back to the authorities to argue their case. Those willing to wait might stand a chance. Minky asked, "How long would the 2nd tier review take?" If we're lucky, 1 to 2 days, Sloane replied. There's a ship leaving the West Town port at 8 a.m. the day after tomorrow. Hopefully, the payment will be processed by then. Dago's team huddled for a quick discussion. We'll tag along. We're not expecting the maximum payout, but we might as well stay together and wait for the review to finish. Sloane nodded. I certainly don't mind your company, but rest assured, as soon as the review is complete, we'll transfer the payment directly to your accounts. Accounts, huh? That word reminded Haru of a small problem. He didn't have a bank account in this world. Sure, the Hunter world had online banking and the universal currency in Jenny, but without an account, it was a moot point. And it wasn't just about an account. Strictly speaking, Haru didn't even have an official identity here. Much like Shizuku, who came from Meteor City, Haru was essentially a ghost on paper. Can I get paid in cash? Haru raised his hand. Sloane chuckled. Since the amount isn't too large, cash, unregistered cards, or online transfers are all options. But for everyone to be paid in cash might not be feasible. Then transfer my share to Shizuku's account, Haru said, glancing at her. That okay? Sure, Shizuku replied calmly. Since when were they this close? Even Sloane looked surprised, as did Dago and his team. Menki, who knew that Shizuku now considered Haru her boss, simply shook her head. But internally, she thought, why didn't he just use my account? As Ochima's finance department worked on the payments, the group naturally returned to discussing the first king of Kaken. Everyone seemed to have different angles of interest. Dago's group, for instance, focused less on the king's ambitions and more on the rumored treasure he had supposedly left behind. That's when Kanzai, who had been quietly standing by, suddenly spoke up. What's the big deal? The so-called First King's treasure pops up every few years. It's just a recurring trend, and no one's ever found anything real. Haru raised an eyebrow. Kanzai, are you interested in the treasure too? Kanzai looked at him like he'd grown a second head. I'm a treasure hunter, of course, I'm interested. But this time, Sloane interjected, leaning back with a knowing smile, the rumors about the First King's treasure are a bit different. Very different. Dago's group nodded in agreement. Kanzai frowned. What's different about them? You don't watch the news? Menki asked, astonished. Even I've heard about this. I haven't heard a thing. Haru thought to himself, discreetly nudging Shizuku. Shizuku, ever curious, asked, what news? Sloane chuckled, opened his laptop, and after a flurry of typing, turned the screen to face the group. Haru leaned in and was surprised by what he saw, a news article with bold keywords like Sky Arena, suicide, mental illness, and the First King of Kaken. The accompanying photo showed the top of Sky Arena, a dizzying outdoor shot, featuring a bald, burly man holding a phone in what appeared to be a vlog selfie. This is a video he took at the time. Sloane clicked on a link to a popular video site, iTube, and opened the footage. The video began like an amateur vlog, with wind roaring and the camera shaking. The bald man stared into the lens, his expression teetering between laughter and tears, and shouted, "The First King's treasure is real." Immediately after, the camera captured a heart-stopping plummet, ending with a sickening thud. The screen flickered with static and bloodstains as the microphone picked up distant screams. The footage ended abruptly. Sloane explained, "This is Alpha Edward, one of the Sky Arena's longtime floor masters." Haru checked the upload date, March 3, 1991, 4 years ago. Dago remarked, "That guru guy we caught here probably got caught up in the hype caused by this." Unlike Guru, who was a minor floor master, Alpha Edward was a respected and skilled fighter. That's why his bizarre suicide and claims about the treasure caused such a frenzy. How dull. What had begun as a simple question had spiraled into a drawn-out explanation. Haru rolled his eyes, deciding to steer the conversation elsewhere. Speaking of Guru, he was a skilled fighter. Aren't you worried about him breaking out? What he really wanted to know was how the authorities managed superpowered criminals without publicly acknowledging non-users. Sloane shrugged. What's to worry about? Even if he's as ferocious as a beast, a little anesthesia, muscle relaxants, or nerve blockers, and he'll be as docile as a kitten. Haru fell silent. What made you think of him? Sloane asked. She's the one who caught him, Haru said, gesturing toward Menki. Menki pointed right back at him. Don't look at me. He and his crew of 5 were all taken down by Haru. I just cleaned up afterward. Not surprising at all. Dago's group glanced at Haru, their expressions calm, as if they had expected nothing less. Oh, the money's in, Shizuku announced, checking her phone. Sloane wrapped up, well then, the ship leaves from West Town at 8 a.m. the day after tomorrow. Safe travels. Haru gave a casual salute before leaving with Shizuku and Menki. Wait a moment. Dago caught up to the trio at the door. We really have to thank you. Without your help, we wouldn't have gotten double the pay. How about dinner tonight, on us? Haru shrugged. I'm staying in East Town. East Town works too, Dago said quickly. Haru waved him off. I appreciate the offer, but I've got things to do. If you really want to thank me, answer a question. Of course, Dago replied earnestly. Where are the Kaken folks? Haru asked, looking around the area. That cauliflower guy was still with us when we left the amusement park. Chapter 42 Menki said, he probably left on his own. He wasn't with the Ochima people to begin with. True, Haru replied, waving it off as he walked away. Dago stood still for a moment, watching the 3 leave before heading back toward West Town. Shizuku, weren't you staying in West Town? Walking along the outskirts of East Town toward the amusement park, Haru glanced at Shizuku. The job's done. Do you have other plans? She asked. Menki chuckled. Hey, you're the boss now. Shouldn't you be arranging things for your underlings? Haru smirked. Want to join too? I'll arrange things for you as well. Menki stuck her tongue out at him. Why aren't we walking through the town? Shizuku asked, pointing toward East Town. Menki answered with a laugh. The dock near East Town has a slaughterhouse. Haru said he can't stand the heavy smell of blood. His nose might even be sharper than mine, and I'm a chef. Seeing Haru's annoyed expression, Menki quickly added, Anyway, I'll leave first. See you at West Town's port the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow and the day after, you're not training? Haru asked. Fine, fine. See you in the afternoon at the usual spot, Menki said with a grin. She waved at Shizuku. You'll be there too, right? I'll bring food for you in advance. As Menki walked away, Shizuku turned her curious gaze toward Haru. Menki is a gourmet hunter, Haru explained. She's great at cooking. Oh, Shizuku nodded. Not long after, as they walked along the outskirts, a crescent tiger strolled toward them from a distance. It was Toru. Feels like I haven't seen you in ages, Haru laughed as he approached, giving the tiger a good rub on the head. He looked into the nearby woods, where various birds perched, green ones, white ones, and 2 crows. Chirp, chirp. A small gray bird swooped down and landed on Haru's shoulder, chirping noisily. Caw, caw. The 2 crows flapped their wings and glided over. Seeing Shizuku's curious expression, Haru asked, Don't you remember them? He pointed to the crows and Toru, the tiger that had once attacked Shizuku. Why would I remember? Shizuku replied, puzzled. I've never seen them before. Haru laughed. Well, they seem to remember you. Impossible, she said with confidence. Haru was amused by her unwavering certainty. Well, let's grab some food first. Okay, Shizuku agreed but hesitated after a few steps. If we're eating, why did you let Menki leave? She cooks well, doesn't she? Menki's cooking really was excellent. That afternoon, during their training session in a clearing in the woods, Shizuku confirmed this firsthand. Menki, however, seemed a bit melancholy. She hadn't expected Shizuku to be so much stronger than her. Of course, the strongest one was still Haru. She glanced at him standing nearby, maintaining his 10 as usual, silently refining his total aura and foundational techniques. Menki thought to herself, if I could train as consistently as he does, even without his freakish talent, I'd definitely grow stronger over time. My energy is restored, Shizuku remarked in surprise, feeling the changes in her aura reserves just 10 minutes after finishing her meal. No wonder Haru invited you to join. Menki waved her chopsticks proudly. As long as I'm satisfied with the dish I make, my ability activates. And it doesn't have to be hot food, salads, pre-packed meals, even snacks like cookies or cakes might work. Might work? Shizuku asked. I haven't tested it yet. Menki admitted, then couldn't resist asking, what's your ability, Shizuku? Shizuku stayed silent, her expression as blank as ever. Across the clearing, Haru finally collapsed onto the ground, muttering, only extended by about a minute. I guess my total aura increased by less than 100. If I spent the next 2 or 3 days purely training, I could probably reach 6,500 or 6,600 aura. But now it's barely 6,100. Finding a balance between missions and training is definitely an art. It was manageable for now, but in the future, once his total aura reached tens of thousands, a single session of 10 until depletion would take several hours. One extended session could easily eat up half a day. Efficient? Not really. For example, Mizastum had 70,000 aura and was considered a top-tier hunter. But there was a reason such levels were rare. Everyone had the same 24 hours a day. If spending half a day on 10 yielded diminishing returns, it might be more worthwhile to invest that time in developing specific Hatsu techniques, refining their precision and versatility, or expanding tactical options. After all, a single invincible ability could be far more effective than grinding aura reserves endlessly. That said, Haru couldn't ignore the chimera ants he remembered from the manga, some with aura reserves in the tens or even hundreds of thousands. Against such monsters, even the most unassailable ability would be useless if you were overwhelmed by their raw presence or blown apart by a simple, high-powered attack. Sword sect versus chi sect. The thought popped into Haru's mind. Then he noticed Menki's awkward attempt to get Shizuku to answer her question and couldn't help but laugh. Menki caught his look and glared at him. Shizuku, what's your ability? Haru asked. Blinky, she said, raising her hand to materialize a vacuum cleaner out of thin air. You're a conjurer too, Menki exclaimed in surprise. Blinky's ability is... Shizuku started to explain, but Menki quickly interrupted, that's enough. Knowing your category is enough, you don't have to reveal everything. I didn't tell you my full ability either. Shizuku looked at Haru, who shrugged. What about you, Haru? Menki demanded. I still don't know your category. Haru rolled his eyes. I'm a history major. Now get back to practicing 10. Menki huffed but stood up, took a deep breath, and activated Ren before stabilizing it into 10. Shizuku followed suit. Haru, meanwhile, began eating the leftover food. Halfway through, he realized he was using their chopsticks. With the green enhanced meal restoring his energy, Haru's aura began regenerating rapidly. Thanks to the star emblem on his neck, his recovery rate was noticeably faster than Menki and Shizuku's. As he ate, Haru observed them. Shizuku's 10 was significantly larger in volume than Menki's, but it was less stable. Based on his estimates, Shizuku could likely sustain it for about 2 hours, indicating a total aura of around 7,200. Menki, on the other hand, could barely manage 5 minutes, with a reserve of less than 300. Just over 5 minutes later, Menki collapsed onto the ground, panting heavily. She stared at Shizuku, who continued her 10 with ease, looking like she could go on forever. Menki's frustration was written all over her face. Elsewhere, aboard a ship crossing the sea, Baby Mina ended his phone call with the first prince of Kakin, concluding his brief mission report. Once he returned to Kakin, he would have to prepare a detailed written report covering every aspect of the mission. Chapter 43. Early the next morning, a representative from the Blanchette Company arrived at the small inn where Haru was staying, delivering a brand new model of the Spirit smartphone. Local connections really are impressive. Haru weighed the box in his hand, watching as the staff moved next door and quickly knocked on another door. "What phone?" Shizuku's voice drifted out from the hallway. "Impossible. That's not true." "It definitely is." Haru walked over, tossing his brand new box in the air as he motioned toward Shizuku. Only then did Shizuku, confused, take the box from the Blanchette Company representative. Haru found it amusing. "Even if you forgot, why wouldn't you accept a free phone before deciding it's real?" Cradling the box, Shizuku murmured, "What if it's a bomb?" She has a point. Haru had to admit. While both of them were fairly strong nin users, in an unguarded moment and at close range, even a small explosive could injure them if they didn't have time to activate their aura for defense. Walking into Shizuku's room, Haru asked curiously, "So let's say there might be a bomb inside. How would you check?" Closing the door behind him, Shizuku thought for a moment, then ripped a small opening in the plastic wrapping of the Spirit smartphone box, raking its seal. Next, she raised her hand, conjuring a bizarre, cartoonishly grotesque vacuum cleaner with a wide, grinning mouth and a lolling tongue. "Blinky, suck the bomb inside," Shizuku commanded, flipping the vacuum switch to on. The vacuum's oversized mouth opened wide, making loud suction noises as it began to inhale. Shoop. It kept sucking for a while, but nothing happened. The partially unwrapped phone box sat motionless on the bedspread. Shizuku let out an ah, her expression as neutral as ever. "It's not a bomb. Your ability works like that. You could get a job in airport security." Haru was genuinely impressed. He'd always known that Shizuku's vacuum could absorb objects and function as a storage device, but he hadn't realized it could be used this way. Shizuku held onto the vacuum's handle. "Blinky can absorb anything I consider non-living." "You consider?" Haru sat cross-legged on the edge of the bed. "So it's based on your subjective judgment? If you think a living person isn't alive, could you absorb them into Blinky too?" Shizuku tilted her head. "But people are alive. That's just how it is." "I see." Haru nodded thoughtfully. In the manga, during the chairman election arc leading into the Dark Continent storyline, Kurapika had mentioned the concept of the subconscious when discussing the capabilities of his chain jail. Haru began to putting things together. Unwrapping his own box, Haru pulled out the new Spirit smartphone and began testing it while reflecting. According to Kurapika, his chain jail could only be used on members of the Phantom Troop. He had established an ironclad vow and restriction that stipulated, "If I use this chain on anyone other than a troop member, my heart will be pierced, and I will die." This ability's core function was rooted in Kurapika's subconscious. "I believe this person is a Phantom Troop member." Because it was tied to his subconscious, there was no way for Kurapika to pretend someone was a troop member in order to bypass the restriction. This highlighted the dual-edged nature of vows and restrictions. Without unwavering conviction and deep understanding, attempting such measures could backfire catastrophically. For someone indecisive or unsure, imposing severe restrictions could easily lead to self-destruction. While Haru pondered, Shizuku flipped Blinky's switch again. "Blinky, suck all the dust in the room." Shoop. The vacuum's gaping mouth opened wide, inhaling every speck of dust from the room. Haru marveled. No wonder your room is cleaner than mine. It can suck anything in, but can it spit things back out? Haru teased. Surely it's not just an intake machine. Blinky can spit out the last thing it absorbed, Shizuku replied. Only the last thing? Haru asked. Yeah. Haru frowned. That doesn't sound right. I've seen you casually summon a bottle of water, then a loaf of bread right after. Didn't those come out of Blinky too? It was possible that the water and bread she had retrieved earlier had simply been the most recent items Blinky absorbed. However, Haru considered another possibility. He smirked. I think Blinky could probably spit out anything it's absorbed. You just have a bad memory, so you only remember the last thing. To Haru's surprise, Shizuku didn't deny the comment about her bad memory with her usual impossible, not true. That might be the case, she admitted. Just as Kurapika hadn't fully understood the intricacies of his chain abilities, Shizuku's incomplete grasp of her own ability was entirely plausible. Nen abilities were born from unique circumstances and individual creativity, often revealing hidden depths over time. Even if Blinky truly could only return the last absorbed item for now, Nen abilities weren't static. In the manga, Krillou had evolved his book, Bandit's Secret, to include a bookmark that significantly enhanced its functionality. Who's to say Shizuku's Blinky couldn't change as well? Why not just remember everything Blinky absorbs and imagine it can always spit those items back out? Maybe Blinky will adapt to match your expectations, Haru suggested. Shizuku nodded, dispersing the vacuum into a puff of aura. Makes sense. Haru chuckled. You're so open about your ability. It feels like I'm taking advantage of you. Shizuku tilted her head, confused. You're the boss, right? The first rule of the Dawn organization, follow the boss's orders. Haru paused, then smiled and nodded. After a moment, he got up and opened the window, glancing outside. What's wrong? Shizuku asked. Nothing yet. We'll need to wait a little longer. Haru closed the window and sat back down at the table. Let's arm wrestle again in the meantime. Hey hunters, time for a legally required break. Hope you're enjoying the fanfic. Did you know, Melody's appearance is based on the Curse of the Devil Sonata. A real urban legend about cursed musical pieces. Now let's dive back into the fanfic. Chapter 44 - Alright, Shizuku said, sitting across from Haru and extending her left arm. Haru chuckled, noticing her choice. Your dominant hand is your left. Then why did you use your right hand at the amusement park last time? Because you extended your right hand, so I went along with it, Shizuku replied matter-of-factly. Then let's use the left hand this time, Haru said as he glanced around the room. Do you have any lipstick? I don't use lipstick. I have lip balm, though. That won't work. I need something that leaves a clear mark. Haru searched around Shizuku's room until he found an oil-based marker. He removed the ink cartridge, flicked it sharply, and used the ink to draw a pentagram on his left palm. Shizuku watched curiously as Haru casually returned to the table and extended his left hand, signaling for her to grab it. Whenever you're ready, Haru said with a grin. Shizuku adjusted her glasses, which slid down her nose, and reached out her left hand to grasp his. But the moment she made contact, she froze. Her hand wouldn't budge, as if it wasn't her own. It was as though she was locked inside her own body, unable to control it. Lose to me, Haru commanded. At his words, Shizuku felt her sense of self returning, as if she were surfacing from underwater. However, her body still wasn't entirely under her control. Her left hand began to tilt toward the table, falling in slow motion until it finally touched the surface she had lost. Regaining full control of her body, Shizuku looked down at her left palm. On it was the ink pentagram Haru had drawn, but now overlaid with a shimmering rose gold star. I get it now, Shizuku said in realization. That day, no matter which hand I used, I couldn't have won against you. Haru reached over and slapped her palm. The glowing star mark vanished. My ability isn't any worse than your Blinky, right? Haru teased as a gray rock sparrow darted in through the open window, chirping energetically as it landed on his shoulder. But Shizuku still had no memory of ever seeing these birds. I'm a manipulation-type user, Haru explained, gesturing to the bird. The mark I placed on your hand allows me to control you. Watch this. Haru controlled the sparrow, guiding it to fly to Shizuku's shoulder. During special situations, you can think of these birds as extensions of me. All right. Shizuku nodded thoughtfully and held out her palm. Come here, she said to the sparrow. The bird fluttered onto her hand. Do a flip, she commanded. Under Haru's control, the bird flipped in her palm. Fly around my hand, Shizuku said. The sparrow flapped its wings, circling her hand once before landing back on her palm. You're smiling again, Shizuku, Haru remarked. Am I? Shizuku touched the corners of her mouth, confused, then glanced down at the sparrow. I guess it's because I find this interesting. Let's try out your Blinky again, Haru suggested, excited. Let's test its limits. It'll be much more useful if it can retrieve items on command, like a four-dimensional pocket. The inability to absorb living beings seems to be a core restriction, though, part of its underlying logic, so it might be hard to change. Okay, Shizuku agreed, summoning her grinning vacuum cleaner. The morning flew by as they experimented and discussed their abilities. It wasn't until their phones rang, and Menki's voice came through, that they realized they had missed lunchtime. Shizuku, I've been waiting for you two all morning. Where are you? Menki complained. Haru glanced at his brand new smartphone, realizing he still needed to get a SIM card. Is Haru with you? Menki asked suspiciously. Shizuku, you're too naive. Don't let that scheming guy manipulate you. Not at all, Shizuku replied, glancing at Haru. Talking behind my back, huh? Haru chimed in. Careful, or your cooking will suffer for it. We're on our way. Hanging up, Haru and Shizuku headed out to meet Menki for another afternoon of rigorous training in the wilderness. The day passed in a cycle of practice and recovery. They focused on foundational skills, Ten, Zetsu, Ren, Gyo, before moving on to Ken. Each round pushed their aura reserves further, increasing their total Nen output. Thanks to Menki's restorative green seasoned meals, they pushed through until dusk. By the end, Haru extended his Ken duration to just over 105 minutes, Shizuku reached 122 minutes, and Menki managed 7 minutes. Haru's total aura reached 6,329 units, Shizuku's 7,349, and Menki's 455. As Haru exhaled deeply, he reflected on his progress. With his current abilities, defeating someone like Gaara was no challenge, even with one hand tied behind his back. That night, lying in bed, Haru stared at the moonlit sky. He wondered if it was possible to officially adopt Crescent Tiger, Toru. Even if the creature was endangered, his hunter license could likely clear the way. But his license was black market, an unregistered shadow license. Adopting Toru would require dealing with official channels, and those channels might expose his false identity. Furthermore, the Blanchette Company, the island's caretakers, might not be the only stakeholders. Official agencies from Kaken and Oshima could get involved. It could turn into a bureaucratic mess. Sighing, Haru thought, Shizuku's Blinky would be so much more convenient if it could absorb living things. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. At dawn the next day, Haru ventured into the forest alone. Toru padded over from the shadows, its crescent-striped fur glinting in the faint morning light. Haru crouched down, stroking Toru's head. All right, buddy. Time to say goodbye for now. Then, he called out into the stillness, "Little White. Are you there?" A faint white silhouette resembling a boy emerged from the misty woods. Haru chuckled and patted Toru's head. "Little White, we're kindred spirits. I'll entrust Toru to you for now." Toru nuzzled him in response. Little White's translucent figure showed little emotion, appearing even more spectral compared to his form in the white fox toy. Haru smiled and extended his hand. "If you agree, let's shake on it." Little White hesitated for a moment before reaching out. Their hands met in a silent pact. By 7:30 a.m., Haru, Shizuku, and Menki boarded a ship at West Town's harbor. As the vessel prepared to set sail, Haru turned back toward the island. In the distance, Toru stood at the forest's edge, Little White's ghostly form hovering above it. "Goodbye," Haru whispered, waving. "Come on, Haru," Menki called from the deck. "The ship's leaving." Haru turned with a smile, joining the others. The ship pulled away from the island, cutting through the waves toward the port city of Grelborg. Chapter 45. The royal capital of Kaken was currently draped in a veil of gentle rain. With the king's birthday fast approaching, even the princes who were usually scattered across the kingdom or abroad had gathered in the royal palace to attend various banquets and events. The rain fell softly outside the windows as Baby Mina stood at attention in a quiet room. Across from him, seated at the desk, was the first Prince Benjamin. Like a lion cloaked in human skin, his imposing presence filled the room as he swiftly scanned the mission report presented to him. With each page read, he passed it to his advisor, the scar-faced, bald black man, Balsamilko, who methodically reviewed the contents until the last page. Benjamin closed his eyes briefly, deep in thought. The advisor mulled over the report internally. A hunter association one-star hunter, Elantriel Blanchat, had indeed come into contact with the empty tomb of the first king of Kaken. The malicious Nen beast left behind by the late Prince Nast had been neutralized by Elantriel and was deemed no longer a threat to the Hoei Guoru royal family. The deposed queen and her entourage of bodyguards had been confirmed dead. Baby Mina reported being possibly monitored via birds. And, most troublingly, the whereabouts of the illegitimate child were still unknown, with their survival status unconfirmed. Benjamin opened his eyes and asked in a deep voice, by elimination, could this Haru be the one who picked up the missing hunter license? Or worse, could he actually be the missing illegitimate child? Balsamilko analyzed, he is a conjuration-type Nen user, but we cannot rule out the possibility that he's masquerading as an enhancement type. Or even a manipulation type. Baby Mina added, in that case, the bird suspected of monitoring me could be his doing. It's not impossible for Nen abilities to accelerate the growth of an infant to appear as a 5-year-old child. But then, who could have facilitated such a process? Balsamilko hesitated. The deposed queen was an ordinary person. Could she have awakened her Nen at the moment of death? The chances are slim. Even if the infant's body was forcibly matured, Haru's demonstrated intelligence, capability, and mental acuity remain difficult to explain. Unless this Haru is not a real person but a puppet conjured by someone hidden behind the scenes, Baby Mina suggested. But that would lead to endless speculation without answers. Benjamin nodded, finally making a decision. Since no body has been found, assume the illegitimate child is alive. Since his location is unknown, assume he harbors hostility toward us and will seek revenge in the next 10 or 20 years. Always remain prepared for battle. Yes. Both Balsamilko and Baby Mina responded in unison. Benjamin's gaze lingered on the report as he ordered, compile all data related to this Haru and the other hunters mentioned in Baby Mina's report. For now, we'll consider this matter closed. I have other engagements to attend. The first prince rose from his chair. For once, he wasn't wearing his usual military uniform but a tailored black suit meant for the grand ball. His towering figure cut an imposing silhouette as he left the room. As he walked through the carpeted corridor, he encountered a tall woman dressed in an elegant gown, none other than the second prince, Camilla Howe Guoru. According to Khakin tradition, the king's children were all referred to as princes, regardless of gender. The monarchy did not practice primogeniture, the throne was determined by a brutal succession war declared by the reigning monarch. The elegantly dressed second prince, Camilla, sneered with disdain. "How unexpected, Benjamin. A brute like you is still hanging around. What is it? Hoping to tarnish the heir in the palace I will one day inherit?" Benjamin's face contorted with anger, his expression ferocious. "Foolish woman, when the succession war begins, you will regret every word." With that, he turned and strode toward the ballroom. Balsamilco watched his prince's retreating figure, noting how outsiders often underestimated Benjamin due to his rough demeanor. Little did they know, Benjamin was a strategic thinker with both courage and intelligence, a natural candidate for the throne. Meanwhile, Camilla's expression remained cold as she entered the ballroom filled with nobles and dignitaries. Elsewhere, Ginta sat at a desk, staring at his laptop screen. The Hunter Association database yielded no records of a hunter named Haru. He wasn't listed among the licensed hunters or even among past participants in the hunter exam over the last 20 years, or 50 years, for that matter. A pseudonym, perhaps? Ginta munched on a bag of chips, pondering aloud. If his situation is like biscuits, with his body permanently altered, and he's changed his name, then it's like he's become an entirely different person. Unless we get a DNA sample and run it through the international database, it's impossible to verify his true identity. Should he ask Cheadle for help? Ginta dismissed the thought. Though both were members of the 12 zodiacs, their stances often clashed. He leaned toward conservatism, while Cheadle favored more progressive reforms. Besides, Haru seemed genuine enough. His interactions with Menki showed no ill intent. Shrugging, Ginta set the matter aside. He had more pressing matters as a poacher-hunter to attend to. Meanwhile, on the ship bound for the port city of Grelborg in Okima, Menki knocked loudly on Haru's cabin door. "Haru, let's go out and explore. Shizuku's coming too." From inside came Haru's muffled reply, "Training? No time." Chapter 46. Outside the cabin, Menki sighed, exasperated. "Are you seriously going to spend the entire day without relaxing?" Inside, Haru sat cross-legged on his cabin bed, feeling the ship's subtle rocking as it sailed across the waves. Through the round porthole, he gazed at the undulating sea. Dead aura. Haru frowned slightly, realizing he had been careless. Just moments ago, a faint yet familiar trace of dead aura, both cold and hot, had entered his chest. For a fleeting second, he thought someone aboard the ship might have been murdered. But as he focused, he realized the aura came from beneath the ship, aligning with its movement. It came from the sea. Haru imagined a dramatic underwater scene, a shark tearing into a massive octopus with its razor-sharp teeth. As the octopus died, ink spilled into the water, and a pure trace of dead aura, imbued with both negative and positive energy, shot upwards, piercing through the ocean surface and converging on Haru's chest as he practiced Nen. "My absorption range is about 1 kilometer. Is this ocean even that deep?" Haru thought. "With the ship's speed, for me to randomly absorb dead aura, some sea creature must have died at just the right moment, directly beneath the ship." He waited in silence, but no more dead aura came. This relieved him somewhat. After tidying up and grabbing his new phone along with some cash, Haru left the cabin. Outside, his 2 ravens roamed freely on the deck, mingling with the occasional passenger offering them crumbs. Meanwhile, his gray sparrow, locked inside the cabin, chirped indignantly, pecking furiously at the door. In the nearby rooms, Haru's neighbors were mostly familiar faces. To his right were Menki and Shizuku's quarters. To his left, Dago and his crew shared a cabin, while the farthest cabin housed Sloane and other members of the Okima delegation. Finding Dago's door shut and silent, Haru turned his attention to the common area, a mix of a shop, bar, and social lounge. Ha ha ha. I saw a crescent tiger with my own eyes. Alive. It was magnificent. Totally worth the trip. Crescent tigers are rare, but check this out. I bought a blue moon gem. Supposedly, each crescent tiger produces only one of these gems in its lifetime. The common area bustled with energy, a stark contrast to the ghostly serenity of the island they just left behind. Haru was greeted by the heat of crowded bodies, the smell of food and alcohol, and a cacophony of voices in different languages. From whispered conspiracies to bold exaggerations, the travelers shared their stories. I'm telling you, HxH is the killer. Those corrupt judges and lawyers are a disgrace. Such a beautiful wife, and that pig HxH had the nerve too. Even with the noise, Haru found his way to the small onboard shop. Pulling out a bill, he asked the clerk, "Do you have a world map? And 2 decks of playing cards?" Playing cards? The elderly shopkeeper adjusted his glasses and leaned forward, sizing up the young boy. "What's a kid like you doing with playing cards? Where are your parents?" Haru sighed, debating whether to flash his hunter license. Doing so might attract unnecessary attention on this crowded ship. He wasn't in the mood for trouble, especially the kind that couldn't simply be beaten into submission. "Is there a problem?" Dago's voice interrupted as he appeared beside Haru. Haru glanced at him. "Buy me the cards and the map. Here's the cash." He handed over the bill. Dago hesitated, but he couldn't refuse. With a sheepish smile, he purchased the items and handed them to Haru. "We're chatting over tea nearby. Join us if you'd like," Dago offered, gesturing toward a group of people seated around several pushed-together tables. Haru pocketed the cards and map, responding nonchalantly, "Nah, I don't want to steal your spotlight. Have fun." With that, he wandered off, hands in his pockets. Outside on the deck, passengers fed scraps to the ravens, which Haru watched lazily. Back at the table, someone asked Dago, "Who's that kid? Your son?" Dago's face darkened. His companions quickly shook their heads, signaling the questioner to stop talking. "There are some things you shouldn't joke about," Dago said seriously. The weight of his tone startled the group into silence. Knock. Knock. Doors unlocked. "Come in," Menki called out lazily, eyes still half closed as she meditated on Shizuku's bed. "Why are you here?" Haru asked as he entered the cabin. Menki opened one eye and glared. "Am I not allowed to be here?" "I mean, this saves me a trip. I was about to call you over anyway," Haru said, holding up a new world map and 2 decks of playing cards. "Let's play cards." Shizuku looked up from a worn book on the cabin's small table, her curiosity piqued. "Weren't you training?" Menki huffed. "Even I need a break sometimes," Haru said as he pulled out a folding stool and set it beside Shizuku. "Come on, Shizuku, let's play." Shizuku tilted her head. "Okay." "Shizuku." Menki protested. "What are we playing?" Shizuku asked, ignoring Menki and leaning closer to study the map Haru had spread on the table. "Well, we'll plan our next destination too," Haru replied, meeting her gaze. Her usual calm expression and sliding glasses made her violet eyes appear even clearer. As she watched him, Haru reached over and slid her glasses off her nose, placing them on his own. "Let's just say we're exploring famous sites." Truthfully, Haru had other reasons for sticking with Shizuku and Menki. He wasn't ready to explain the strange transformations triggered by absorbing too much dead aura. Staying close to his companions gave him some peace of mind, should anything go awry. "Fine, let's play cards," Menki relented, sitting cross-legged on the bed. She patted the space beside her. "There's more room here." Forget that tiny table. And so, the trio passed the time playing cards and planning their next adventures. Shizuku's quiet demeanor and lack of strategy earned her the most penalties, with her face covered in sticky notes by the end. Minky's laughter filled the cabin, and even Haru relaxed more than he had in weeks. Hours later, as the ship approached its destination, Haru noticed several faint traces of dead aura had passed through him during the journey. He dismissed them without much thought. His companions had kept him too entertained to care. Comment. As the ship docked at the port of Grelborg, Haru joined the others on the deck. The orange hues of sunset reflected on the water as they gazed at the modern city ahead, far livelier than the eerie island they'd left behind. Chapter 47. It looks like we won't be able to leave until tomorrow morning. After disembarking with the crowd, Kanzai glanced at the twilight sky and sighed. This is what they mean by unpredictable weather. Is that how the phrase is supposed to be used? Haru was stunned. Turning to look at the tiger of the 12 zodiac, he remarked, I thought you had already left. Kanzai replied, my mission isn't finished yet. Why would I leave? Minky chimed in, we hardly saw you on the ship. With his hands behind his head, Kanzai said casually, if a bodyguard strays too far from their employer, that's when there's a problem. Fair enough, Shizuku nodded. You might not be well educated, but your experience is substantial. Minky was shocked. Shizuku, with her gentle demeanor, turned out to be so sharp-tongued. Yet, her usual calm expression made it seem like she wasn't intentionally mocking Kanzai. I'm a professional hunter, after all. What did you expect? Kanzai said with a grin. So, he only hears the compliments, huh? Not just Haru, Daigo and the others couldn't help but sweat nervously in silence. Okima's bald-headed Sloane interjected to mediate, let's find a hotel to stay at for the night and leave tomorrow. He smiled as if recalling something. Tomorrow is the 16th. Mr. Kanzai's short-term bodyguard contract runs until the end of January. It's rare to hire a capable member of the Hunter Association's 12 Zodiac. If we handle some minor issues along the way, it shouldn't be a problem, right? Kanzai said, anyway, I'm the bodyguard, and I'll fulfill my duties. Daigo and the others, having nothing better to do and hoping to negotiate for higher pay, agreed. Haru then looked at Menki. While on the ship, the three of them had spent a lot of time poring over a world map. Haru pinpointed several destinations he wanted to visit, such as the Hunter Association headquarters, the Lost Melody wetlands, the Heavens Arena, and even the Zoldyck family estate, which was practically a tourist spot. He also considered visiting NGL to scout the place. Shizuku didn't have a specific destination in mind, she simply followed Haru wherever he went. Menki, however, had her own plans. I'm not leaving Okima, Menki had declared while lying on her bunk in the cabin. Tracing a line across the map from Okima's position in the southeast corner, she said, since I'm already here, I plan to travel around the New Amil continent, sampling local cuisines and hunting for rare ingredients. After all, I'm a gourmet hunter. With a smile, she reached out to pat Haru on the head, only to be met with a flick of his middle finger. Little girl, are you itching for a fight? Ha ha, Menki laughed. The group checked into a hotel, with Sloane footing the bill as usual. After a brief rest, they trickled out of their rooms and gathered at the hotel restaurant for dinner. Curious about Kanzai, Haru asked while cutting into a steak, Mr. Kanzai, you look quite young. When did you become a member of the 12 Zodiac? Kanzai speared a large piece of meat and chewed on it. A few years ago, I think. I can't remember exactly. Haru said, I heard the 12 Zodiac are personally selected by Chairman Netero. Pausing his meal, Kanzai fixed Haru with a stare. After a moment, he said, do you want to join? The spots are full. That's what they call overcrowding. Unless the chairman decides to replace someone, Kanzai continued, wiping meat sauce from his mouth and grinning. The chairman invited me because I'm strong. If you can defeat me, I could recommend you as my replacement. Want to try? Mr. Kanzai, I'm not a treasure, Haru replied. The way you're staring at me is making me feel pressured. Kanzai grabbed another steak and dug in. This is what they call generosity. What a wordsmith. After dinner, everyone returned to their rooms to rest. Haru brought a bottle of juice to his room and opened the window. Under the cover of night, a rock sparrow and 2 crows flew in. The city's moonlight was dim. Haru dipped his finger into the juice and drew a crescent shape on the windowsill. A ball of aura gathered at his fingertip, covering the crescent shape drawn in juice, leaving a dark gray moonlit mark. The moon mark is just a communication tool, the target carrying it doesn't matter. The mark itself is the anchor. So, it can also be applied to objects. Lost in thought, Haru turned and noticed Shizuku stepping onto her balcony next door to enjoy the breeze. Haru waved with a smile. Shizuku tilted her head and waved back. The next morning, January 16th, 7 a.m. At the bustling train station, Menki, carrying a simple backpack with a kitchen knife strapped to her waist, stood ready to board. With her hunter license, she could flaunt such items without issue, a true perk of being a professional hunter. Haru and Shizuku had come to see her off. Their train to Okima's larger city of Cosmo wouldn't depart until 9:15. Cosmo, a more modern metropolis than the port city of Gribo, offered international ship tickets for traveling to other continents. Thanks to their hunter licenses, they didn't need visas for such journeys. Wait, Haru suddenly asked Shizuku. You don't have a hunter license. Did you manage to get a visa to stay in Okima? Unlikely, considering Meteor City residents didn't even have formal identities and international databases. Shizuku replied, we have people who can forge all kinds of documents. That's not very ethical, Haru criticized. Maybe I should get a batch made too. What are you whispering about? Menki complained. Aren't you here to see me off? You haven't left yet. Haru feigned surprise. Menki bared her teeth at him, but she couldn't help laughing. Fine, we'll meet again anyway. Next time, I'll amaze you. I've thought of a fantastic new ability, perfectly suited for me. Haru scoffed. How amazing? 2 punches, and I'll have you down. Next time we meet, if you don't have at least 10,000 yen, don't even call me your friend. Same goes for you. Menki stuck out her tongue. Without my cooking to help you recover, don't let your training fall behind. Haru extended a fist. Menki smiled and bumped it. I'm a hunter too. Don't underestimate me. Both turned to the ever-blank Shizuku, who eventually extended her fist as well. The 3 fists bumped together. Whoosh! A gust of wind heralded the train's arrival. Amid the bustling crowd, Haru said, You'd better get on. Waving as she backed away, Menki turned and disappeared onto the train. Haru and Shizuku prepared to meet up with Kanzai and Sloane, as their own train would leave in 2 hours. Just as they turned to go, Menki's voice called out again, Hey! They turned. From afar, Menki pointed at Haru and shouted, What's your nen type? Before Haru could answer, Menki laughed and waved it off. Blending into the crowd, she boarded the train and vanished. Chapter 48. The train slowly departed from Gribo Station, racing along the tracks. Watching the scenery speed past outside the window, Haru opened a small gap in his backpack's zipper, tossed in some feed, and said, Finish it all. Shizuku sat across from him, quietly reading a book. Chirp, chirp. A small gray bird, the rock sparrow, quickly poked its head out through the gap. Stop chirping, Haru extended a finger to gently push it back inside. If you stay quiet, I'll let you out. The rock sparrow nodded repeatedly and finally squeezed out of the bag, hopping onto the table. A passing train attendant noticed the little gray bird and couldn't help but gasp in surprise. Flap, flap. The rock sparrow flapped its wings, making a lap around the train car before streaking into the neighboring carriage as a gray blur. The attendant hurriedly went after it. "Aren't you worried about it?" Shizuku asked. "It'll come back when it's hungry," Haru replied. He leaned on the table, glancing at the book Shizuku was reading. "You like reading a lot, huh?" Shizuku's gaze remained fixed on the book. "Because I often find books." Is she talking about her childhood in Meteor City? Haru wondered. Finding books in the garbage. Well, you couldn't eat them, so reading was the only option. Hard to argue with that logic. "What else do you like besides books?" Haru asked curiously. "Jewelry, accessories, because I never found any of those." "That makes sense. What about you?" Shizuku blinked, curious. "What do you like?" "I like playing League of Legends." Shizuku looked confused. Haru laughed. "It's a video game." "Oh. And web novels, comics." Haru leaned back in his seat, gazing at the scenery rushing by outside. "Ah, the past just blows away like the wind." Shizuku didn't understand what he was lamenting, so she simply watched him quietly. The train's soft rumbling persisted. After a while, Haru snapped back to reality and smiled. "This is boring. Let's train together." "Okay." Shizuku closed her book and followed Haru to their shared room in another carriage. Unlike the ship, where they had private rooms, the train accommodations were simpler. The shared room had 2 soft beds on either side and a small, basic washroom further in. After closing the door, Shizuku held out her hand and materialized Blinky, her conjured vacuum cleaner, using it to absorb her book. "You can already retrieve and store things at will?" Haru asked. Shizuku stuck out her tongue. "Only things I remember as important." Haru gestured for her to come closer, smiling. "In a few days, I'll let you try mine too." "You have a new ability?" Shizuku's curiosity was piqued. "It's not exactly new," Haru admitted. "It's kind of like a smartphone." "Why does that make it sound so underwhelming?" He shook his head, kicked off his shoes, and sat cross-legged on his bed. "Let's get to training." Shizuku, though curious, didn't press further. She removed her shoes and sat cross-legged on the opposite bed. Both began releasing aura and wrapping themselves in ten. "There's no rule saying you have to stand to practice Ken." "Is that aura? Someone using Ken?" In a nearby room, Sloane was napping, while Kanzai suddenly turned his attention to the train car wall. Although he wasn't using N, the 2 auras gathering nearby weren't far away, and their strength was noticeable. Haru and Shizuku, Kanzai thought. These 2 have decent potential. Training even while traveling, Chairman Netero would probably like that attitude. Lying down with his arms behind his head and legs crossed, Kanzai smirked. Still, they're far from the average strength of the 12 Zodiac. They haven't even reached the level of an intermediate combatant. Is this what they call a wise man overthinking? In another nearby room, Daigo and his group looked at each other in alarm. The sudden burst of intimidating aura had startled them, causing them to jump out of their bunks. So it's Haru and Shizuku. What are they doing? Did they encounter an enemy? Why release so much aura? Is that Ren? No, it doesn't seem like it. You idiots, that's Ken, Daigo thought silently. Ken is an application of Ren and Ten. It shouldn't leak so much aura. These 2 are stronger than I expected. Surprised by Shizuku's strength, Daigo wiped sweat from his brow. The thought of someone as strong as Shizuku being so deferential to Haru, who seemed almost childlike, left Daigo shaking his head. People really can't be compared. Traveling by train was tedious. The train stopped briefly in the afternoon, allowing Haru and Shizuku to stretch their legs and buy feed for the rock sparrow, which had been playing hide and seek with the attendants and passengers across multiple cars. As night fell, the train continued its tireless journey toward its destination. Inside the brightly lit carriages, some were bustling with activity, while others remained quiet and orderly. Some passengers leaned against their luggage to sleep, while others trained in silence. The train wouldn't tire, but people would. And in the middle of the night, several individuals who had blended into the carriages made their move. After resting with their eyes closed for most of the night, they struck decisively in the pre-dawn hours, when the passengers were at their most exhausted. Splitting into three groups, one group infiltrated other cars, another blocked the entrances and exits, while the third, armed with guns and knives, quietly threatened the groggy passengers. "Don't move. Hand over anything valuable. Give us your money if you don't want to die." Meanwhile, on the luggage rack above, nestled among the bags, the rock sparrow tilted its head curiously, observing the strange scene unfolding below. PFFT. Haru spat out toothpaste foam into the sink and stepped aside to let Shizuku use it. After rinsing his face with cold water, he said, "There's a robbery happening in another car. Wanna go play vigilante?" "Sure." Shizuku began brushing her teeth, and Haru clapped his hands impatiently. "Hurry up." Daigo and the others seemed to have noticed too. "If we're too slow, we'll miss all the fun." Shizuku sped up her brushing. Knock, knock, knock. Haru tapped on Kanzai and Sloane's door, calling out, "There's a group robbing the train in the back cars. Wanna check it out?" From inside, Sloane's sleepy voice replied, "Just some train robbers? I thought it was something serious." "Ugh, you guys handle it." Kanzai's voice followed. "If he's not going, neither am I. They're just petty thieves. Try not to kill them." "I wouldn't kill them even if you paid me," Haru muttered, patting his chest before heading toward the hijacked car with Shizuku in tow. At the car's entrance, a few train attendants were anxiously speaking to Daigo and his group. Upon seeing Haru and Shizuku, the latter visibly relaxed. "You leading the charge?" Daigo asked. "Our abilities are confidential." Haru pointed behind him. "Step aside." "Got it." Daigo, understanding, quickly moved the nervous attendants out of the way. "Don't worry. The two of them could probably take all of us on at once." Haru snapped his fingers, forming a nen bullet and aiming it at the car door's window. Blinky, Shizuku summoned her vacuum cleaner and flipped it on. "Once the door opens, suck up all their guns and knives." Boom. With a loud bang, the situation inside the car shifted in an instant. All the weapons were sucked away, leaving the robbers stunned. Before they could react, two figures flashed past. After two quick punches, the robbers were unconscious. Ordinary people stood no chance. They couldn't even see Haru and Shizuku's movements before being swiftly taken down. As the train sped through the morning sunlight, the city of Cosmo came into view in the distance, the rising sun illuminating the horizon. At Cosmo Station, a group of bruised and bewildered train robbers were handed over to the authorities. Haru and his companions disembarked as if nothing had happened. Even Sloane, an Okima official, seemed nonchalant, as if train robberies were no big deal in Okima. Stepping out of the crowded station, they were surprised to find the streets packed with people, as if a major event were taking place. While Sloane and the others waited for their delayed transportation, Haru and Shizuku decided to part ways with them. They had no interest in waiting for a potential bonus. Watching the bustling street, Haru grew curious. "What's going on?" A staff member accompanying Sloane glanced at his watch and replied casually, "It's the Gatford Marathon." "Damn, who planned this route? Why pass right in front of the station?" "What's wrong?" Haru asked. "It's just the Gatford Marathon." The staffer thought Haru hadn't heard clearly, only to realize he was addressing Kanzai. Kanzai frowned slightly. "Something doesn't feel right." He scanned the surroundings and extended an arm to shield Sloane. "Whoa." The crowd watching the marathon erupted into cheers. At the same time, a young man in a baseball cap emerged from the nearby crowd. He grinned at Sloane and the others, his backpack glowing faintly. Boom! A sudden explosion of fire and light erupted, scattering the crowd in terror. In the blaze, Sloane and the others wore expressions of shock. Kanzai bared his fangs, Haru silently shouted something at Shizuku, and both of their auras surged outward in Ken. Daigo and his group barely managed to brace themselves, only to be blown back by the powerful shockwave. Chapter 49. The sudden explosion turned the lively street, crowded with marathon spectators, into a scene of chaos and bloodshed. Smoke, screams, panic. The place where the baseball cap-wearing young man had been was now a scorched crater. Around it, charred limbs and white bones were scattered in a radial pattern. Many people sat frozen in shock, while others screamed and ran frantically, colliding and trampling over one another in their desperate escape. The air was thick with tension and terror. Buzz. The piercing ringing in Shizuku's ears gradually subsided. She lowered her arms, which had been shielding her face. "Are you okay?" Haru asked beside her. Shizuku checked herself. Thanks to the time she had spent practicing Ken with Haru, her defense had been timely. Even so, the explosion's close proximity was overwhelming. The scorching heatwave, the powerful shock, and the debris mixed with shards of stone had left her black sweater sleeves and her jeans in tatters. Her wounds were bloody, and some appeared burnt from the heat. "It's just superficial injuries," she concluded before looking at Haru. "What about you? You don't look so good. Are you okay? Help me. It hurts. Ah. My leg. My leg is over there. Somebody, please help." The chaotic cries and screams surrounded them. Haru's face was pale as he clutched his chest, surveying the street that had turned into a terror-stricken scene. Judging by the cold yet searing aura entering his heart, the explosion had claimed 15 lives in an instant. On top of that, many others were severely injured and on the brink of death, their lifeless forms littering the ground. As these thoughts raced through Haru's mind, 2 more streams of aura surged into his chest. His heart pounded violently, and phantom pain coursed through him. Haru had an ominous feeling that if this continued, even one more stream of aura would cause him to lose control and transform. What age would his body accelerate to this time? 15? 20? 30? A sobbing, screaming man stumbled into him. Haru caught him and casually took his black trench coat. Elsewhere, Daigo and his group were caught off guard and blown back by the heat wave. Though they were nen users and their aura provided far more protection than an ordinary person's, they were gravely injured but still breathing. Daigo, suffering the least damage, remained conscious amidst the chaos. He looked around, bewildered and frustrated. "Hey, are you okay?" Sloane felt a sharp slap on his face, snapping him awake. It was Kanzai. "I'm fine," Sloane stammered, still shaken. His face was pale as he recalled the moments before the explosion. That baseball cap-wearing youth had clearly been targeting him. If Kanzai hadn't shielded him, he would undoubtedly have died. Suddenly, Sloane's eyes narrowed as a primed grenade appeared in his vision. His pupils contracted, his heart racing, and time seemed to freeze. Kanzai, eyes bloodshot and baring his fangs, growled, "Don't underestimate me." In an instant, his body expanded several times over, transforming into a humanoid tiger. He grabbed the grenade and hugged it to his chest. Boom! The grenade exploded in his grasp like a muffled cannon. Kanzai's crouched, shielding stance didn't waver, as if the explosion had been nothing more than a gust of wind. The humanoid tiger straightened, smoke trailing off his frame. His furious expression was evident as he opened his hands, dropping a pile of molten shrapnel. Xingyi Martial Arts, Tiger Fist of Reinforcement. Kanzai's martial arts are instinctive, formed by mimicking the movements of various animals. This unique style allows him to fully harness the power of other nen systems. Restriction: after choosing one martial form, he must remain in it for at least 5 minutes before switching to another. Tiger Fist unleashes 100% of the power of enhancement. There's more than one. Sloane gritted his teeth. In the distance, faint police sirens could be heard. The scene was a chaotic mess, making it impossible to distinguish between ordinary civilians and remaining terrorists. Kanzai, focused on protecting Sloane, couldn't leave his side. Additionally, in his Tiger Fist form, his N ability was greatly diminished, making it harder to locate hidden enemies in the panicked crowd. Kanzai decided, I'll have to control my strength carefully. The humanoid tiger let out a roar that shook the air. Roar. The deafening shockwave caused the surrounding crowd to collapse like flattened wheat fields. Ordinary people were immediately disoriented and incapacitated, temporarily losing the ability to act. With the chaos momentarily quelled, a few individuals stood out, the terrorists who were retrieving grenades, detonators, and firearms from their bags. They were clearly visible, not just to Kanzai but also to Haru and Shizuku, who were maintaining Ken. The three reacted differently. Kanzai, unable to leave his post, dug his claws into the concrete ground, hurling a chunk of stone at one of the terrorists. Shizuku only glanced at the would-be bombers before turning back to Haru, who was pale and unsteady. She silently worried. Is he really okay? Haru didn't know what he was thinking. One more surge of aura, and he might lose control completely. Yet his finger was already on the position, aimed at the terrorists preparing their final attack. Without hesitation, he released a volley of Nen bullets. The air rippled invisibly as the bullets tore through the heads of 4 terrorists. Bang! Kanzai's chunk of concrete crushed the skull of the 5th. The deaths sent 5 streams of cold, searing aura rushing into Haru's chest, pushing his overburdened heart past its limit. Shizuku caught Haru as he swayed. Haru unzipped his backpack, addressing the chirping rock sparrow and 2 crows inside. Listen to Shizuku's commands. Then he draped the trench coat over himself and clung to Shizuku. With the last vestiges of his consciousness, he said, Shizuku, take me away. Okay. Shizuku didn't show much emotion. Following Haru's orders, she wrapped him in the coat and turned to leave. Wait. Is Haru okay? Sloane shouted anxiously. Is he injured? Daigo asked, carrying the other 4 hunters. As police sirens drew closer, Kanzai reverted to his normal form and frowned. What's wrong? If he's hurt, the ambulances will be here soon. Sloane, now calmer, said, That's right, Shizuku. Don't act rashly. If Haru is injured, he needs medical treatment. Move, Shizuku interrupted, her tone calm. Holding Haru with one hand, she conjured her vacuum, Blinky, with the other. Kanzai, already in a foul mood, grew irate at her defiance. Hey, you. I can vacuum up all the bodies here, Shizuku said flatly, her usual vacant expression unchanging. If you don't want things to escalate, don't stop me. She was like a mother beast protecting her cub. Sloane and Daigo couldn't help but think this as they stepped aside. Without another word, Shizuku vanished with Haru in her arms. In the chaos of the streets, no ordinary person could follow her movements. Within moments, she disappeared from Kanzai's and the other site, taking Haru with her. Chapter 50. Shizuku. Are you there? I'm here. How long was I out? 5 hours. 5 hours this time? Damn it. Shizuku, you're still here, right? Yes, I'm here. Good. If you're awake, why don't you open your eyes? You wouldn't understand. Oh, alright. Shizuku. Right now. Haru cracked open one eye and saw Shizuku sitting at the table, looking at him curiously. How old do I look? This time, Shizuku didn't answer directly. Instead, she got up and left the room. A moment later, she returned with a mirror and held it up to Haru's face. The reflection didn't show much of a change, at least not enough to alarm him. Haru exhaled in relief, grateful he hadn't woken up as a middle-aged man. He took the mirror and examined himself carefully. Shizuku returned to her seat at the table, continuing to observe him with curiosity. After a while of lying in bed and inspecting himself, Haru got up and jumped to the floor barefoot. The most noticeable change was, everything seemed shorter. No, it wasn't that the world had shrunk, he had grown taller. Haru turned to look at Shizuku, still seated at the table. She looked up at him with the same curious expression. That book, Haru pointed to the open book on the table. You've been reading it for a while, haven't you? Shizuku nodded. It's taking you this long to finish? Don't tell me you forget it every time you read it? Haru teased. Shizuku glanced at the book, as if having an epiphany, and muttered to herself, that might actually be the case. If I forget, even books I've read many times can still be interesting. With that thought, Shizuku slowly closed the old book, one she no longer remembered how many times she had read. When she looked back, she saw Haru staring at her. Confused, she asked, "What's wrong?" Haru held her gaze for a moment before saying, "Stand up." Shizuku obediently got up and stood in front of him. Haru laughed. "Look, we're about the same height now." He measured his height against hers, drawing a line from his head to her lips. Shizuku didn't move, only asking curiously, "Is this one of your abilities?" Haru looked more intrigued. "Can't you act shocked? A kid suddenly growing up like this should be a big deal." "You already seemed more like an adult before," Shizuku replied matter-of-factly, her glasses sliding slightly down her nose. "So it just feels like your appearance changed." "Fair enough." Haru pushed her glasses back up and noticed she still had some injuries. Shizuku explained, "Because I couldn't use Zetsu, my recovery is slower." Haru understood. Shizuku, though a Nen user with faster healing than ordinary people, wasn't an enhancement type. Protecting him while he was unconscious had left her unable to enter the defenseless Zetsu state to speed up her recovery, leaving her injuries unresolved. Sensing something, Haru glanced at the partially open window. Outside, the three birds with their star markers were stationed like a triangular surveillance system. "What happened while I was unconscious?" Haru asked, sitting at the table. Now that he was taller, he no longer needed to jump to sit down. "Give me a quick rundown." "All right." Shizuku nodded. "After I carried you away, I noticed your body was changing. I had no choice but to find a nearby mall and hide in an empty stairwell in the underground parking lot. Over the course of an hour, your body rapidly grew, and it seemed to emit some kind of aura. The minor internal injuries I had were quickly healed, and even my hair grew a little longer." She touched the tips of her hair and continued, "Your height went from 1.1 meters to over 1.5 meters before it stabilized. Once you settled down, I carried you on my back, pretending you were my sleeping little brother, and brought you to this hotel. You didn't wake up, so I stayed here reading while setting your birds to guard outside. Why are you looking at me like that?" "You remember all of that so clearly?" Haru teased. "You didn't make it up, did you?" "I didn't," Shizuku replied calmly. "I just remember things." Haru reached out and ruffled her hair. "I've wanted to do this for ages, but I was too short before." "Ha!" Shizuku tried to smooth her hair back into place. "Anyway, thanks," Haru said, smiling. "If it weren't for you, I'd probably have been exposed." "Exposed?" Shizuku tilted her head. "A power this unique, imagine what people would do if they found out," Haru explained. "Whenever something nearby dies, a kind of energy flows into me. Once it accumulates to a certain point, what happened earlier happens." "Oh." Shizuku nodded. It wasn't clear what she was imagining, but then she asked, "Don't you need to see a doctor?" Haru hesitated. "You can't even control how old your body will be when you wake up. That proves you can't control this transformation. If this continues, won't you have a short life?" Shizuku said, her tone as flat as always. "Has anyone ever told you that you're brutally honest?" Haru asked, exasperated. "No," Shizuku replied, then added curiously, "Or maybe, when your body reaches its limits, it'll revert to being a child? Stop making up backstories for me." Haru slumped onto the bed, staring out the window. In the distance, faint police sirens could still be heard. After a moment, he asked, "Shizuku, do you know about the international server?" Shizuku nodded. Haru patted the space beside him, and she sat down. "The people from Meteor City know about it. The international server holds the world's identity records, except for yours." "Except for us," Shizuku agreed. "That's the problem," Haru said slowly. "I don't know if my identity exists in the server. If it does, going to a hospital could expose me. And I can't be exposed, not until I have the ability to protect myself or leave this continent." Shizuku thought for a moment, then looked at him. "So you really might have a short life." Haru tugged at her cheek, sighed, and flopped onto his back. After a while, Shizuku heard him murmur, "I won't have a short life. Let's make a deal. If I can't figure this out by the time I'm 28, I'll do whatever it takes to solve it." Dog Girl from the 12 Zodiac is a specialist in rare diseases. "By 28, I should at least have some connections, right?" Haru muttered to himself. "Unless the next time this happens, I skip straight to 28. "Why 28? Shizuku asked. "Because after 28, every day feels like a loss," Haru said with a laugh. Shizuku didn't quite understand what he meant. Haru chuckled, then looked at his palm. "If a target carrying the star marker doesn't have the marker destroyed, they won't completely die, even if their head is severed. While recovery from that level of injury would be slow, it wouldn't be immediate death." "That's amazing," Shizuku said before realization dawned on her. "Do you want to put a star marker on me to speed up my recovery?" "Do you mind?" Haru asked. Shizuku shook her head, looked down at herself, then lifted the hem of her black sweater, revealing her smooth, toned stomach. She pointed to her clearly defined abs. "Draw it here." Chapter 51. A small section of lip balm was extended and pressed against Shizuku's smooth, pale abdomen, leaving faint but visible traces as it moved. Shizuku held the hem of her sweater between her teeth, standing in front of Haru by the bed as he drew on her waist and stomach. It was about midday, and the noise of bustling traffic rolled through the hotel's open window, mingling with the hot and chaotic air. When Haru finished, he gathered a ball of aura in his hand and pressed it against the faint five-pointed star pattern he'd drawn on Shizuku's side. The image, now bathed in Haru's aura, activated his manipulation-type ability, Song of the Earth, leaving a rose-gold star-shaped mark on Shizuku's skin. Shizuku immediately felt a subtle change in her aura. The mark Haru had placed seemed like a core hub, seamlessly merging a small amount of Haru's aura with her own. Her energy began circulating uncontrollably, and she could distinctly feel her injuries healing faster than usual. Even her aura regeneration was noticeably sped up. "But why did you ask me to put it here?" Haru suddenly asked. "What?" Shizuku snapped out of her thoughts and looked down at the rose-gold star on her waist. "Isn't this spot fine? I mentioned it earlier, didn't I? If the star mark is damaged, it disappears immediately," Haru explained, raising a finger. "Even a minor scratch or a small cut will disrupt the mark's integrity and cancel it." He pointed to her toned waist. "Placing the mark on a front-facing, vulnerable spot like this during a fight seems pretty risky." Shizuku paused for a moment, then said, "Your star mark is like a tattoo, isn't it? And when I think of tattoos, I imagine them in places like this." Want to move it? Haru asked. Shizuku's expression remained unchanged, as if deep in thought. Then, without warning, she reached for the button on her jeans. Whoa, stop. Haru quickly grabbed her hands. What are you doing? Shizuku said calmly, if it's on a naturally protected, private area, the star mark won't be easily damaged in a fight, right? Well, you've certainly got ideas. Haru flicked her stomach lightly, erasing the star mark, and placed the lip balm in her hand, closing her fingers around it. But you can do it yourself. Shizuku held the lip balm and looked at him for a moment. Okay. Then she turned around, facing away from Haru, holding the hem of her sweater between her teeth as she unbuttoned her jeans. A few seconds later, Haru called out, "Make sure you don't smudge the drawing when you put your clothes back on." Got it, Shizuku mumbled around the fabric in her mouth. Once she finished drawing, she carefully pulled up her clothes, buttoned her jeans, and lowered her sweater. Turning back to Haru, she watched as he summoned a ball of aura and focused on her jeans with a serious expression. "Where did you draw it?" Haru asked. Shizuku pointed to the inner side of her left thigh, near the root, moving stiffly to avoid smudging the balm. Haru pressed the aura ball against the indicated spot through her jeans. Even though he couldn't see the mark, he didn't need to. His ability allowed him to sense and activate the star mark without direct sight. Soon, a new star mark formed beneath the fabric. All set, Haru said with satisfaction. Shizuku thought for a moment, then sat down beside him and asked curiously, "Did you make me do it myself because you were embarrassed?" "Ha! I just didn't want to bully you," Haru scoffed. "Otherwise, with my mark on you, you'd have to obey my every command. If I told you to take off your clothes, you'd have to. Stop right there." Shizuku had started smoothing the hem of her sweater. "It's just wrinkled," she said. Then, tilting her head, she asked, "Can your star mark also issue verbal commands?" "Yeah," Haru confirmed. "But issuing commands requires actively using Nen, so it feels different from casual conversation. As the mark carrier, you'd immediately notice the sensation of being compelled." "Oh." Shizuku nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Even though you're a manipulation type, you don't control people's will. Your Nen ability shows that, at your core, you're a good person. Shizuku, stand up and dance to love you." Shizuku instantly understood what Haru meant by compelled. Her body stood up on its own and began moving to a cheerful, playful rhythm. "Still think I'm a good person?" Haru asked with a mischievous laugh. As her body danced, Shizuku calmly observed, "I've never seen this dance before. Since you don't control personal will, are you actively directing my movements after giving the command?" "Sort of." Haru admitted, quickly canceling the command as he asked casually, "Shizuku, how old are you?" Regaining control of her body, Shizuku stuck out her tongue and sat back down beside him. 14. No, 15. "You see," Haru said solemnly, "I almost committed a crime." Shizuku stared at him blankly. "I'm about half a head shorter than you now," Haru muttered, deep in thought. "I guess I've fast-forwarded straight into puberty. At 1.5 meters tall, how old am I supposed to be?" He looked at Shizuku, who continued staring at him. "I'll say I'm 12, Haru decided. "Aren't you 20? Shizuku asked, confused. 20 in spirit, 12 in body," Haru replied. "Oh. Enough talk, I'm starving. Let's grab something to eat." Haru stood up, realizing his clothes were now too tight. Growing from 1.1 meters to 1.5 meters in one go had its challenges. Thankfully, he had anticipated this and worn loose clothing. Though his outfit was now snug, it wasn't unmanageable. His pants were now shorts, and his shirt was nearly a tank top. "I have spare athletic pants. They're unisex," Shizuku offered. "Bring them." At a roadside diner, Haru and Shizuku sat at a table after ordering. The news played on a small TV, covering the terrorist attack that had taken place earlier on Weston Street near Cosmo Station. The footage showed stretchers and medical staff moving through the scene. "Let's delay our plans to buy a ship ticket," Haru said between bites. Shizuku looked puzzled. "Stations and airports might have tighter security after this," Haru explained. "My hunter license might get me through, but your forged documents won't hold up under scrutiny." Shizuku nodded. "Also," Haru tapped his chest, "if I've grown this much in one nap, I can't afford to waste time. I need to train harder, or it feels like I'm throwing away years of progress. So, before we leave, let's train for a few more days." He smiled, holding his chopsticks. "Let's set a small goal, raise my total nen to 1,000. If we push hard, maybe even 10,000. Shizuku nodded in agreement. As they left the diner, Shizuku suddenly asked, "If your body is 12, doesn't that mean it's not a crime?" "What?" Haru paused, then realized what she meant. "It's easy to fool others, but fooling yourself is hard, Shizuku." Watching Haru's back, Shizuku thought, so it's just embarrassment. She touched her face, unsure if she had smiled. By evening, back at their hotel, Haru and Shizuku stood across from each other, maintaining their strongest ken. Suddenly, Haru opened one eye. "Hey, aren't we forgetting something?" Shizuku opened her eyes as well, thinking for a moment. Then, in unison, they both exclaimed, "We forgot to feed the birds," and that's a wrap, hunters. Another HxH fanfic done. Shout out to the author. Love. Check them out. If you're new, like and sub to become a hunter. Officially. It helps a lot. Check community tab. Actually post stuff. Not just endless sub begging like some bots, embarrassed smiley face emoji, that's it. Also maybe tell me what you thought of the fanfic if you feel like it. Peace. And love y'all, headphone emoji, red heart emoji.